That's what I'd expect from someone with the username Down with Mainstream Media. Got it.
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome everybody. How's it going? What's up? Bert analyzing the viral blue, white, gold dress meme from 10 years ago. He's keeping up with it, huh? Thank you guys for joining us. I'm Will Bird. This is the Cold Beer Confessional. Thank you for joining us. It's a new video game that came out. I haven't bought it because it's expensive as fuck, but I am pretty excited about it. I'm gonna buy it eventually. It is like this game where you like legit live like a medieval knight and play it. There was another one before it. This is the second part. It looks like Asmongold's covering it. Hold on.
It is time. We have waited years for
We can't watch a 4-hour stream, but it's Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's a pretty crazy looking game. I'm excited to play it. The first one was really good. It's actually got a bunch of bad press because it's a game where basically you can like proceed any way you want. So like if you want to like charm people and talk them into shit, you work on that. If you just want to bully people, you bully people. If you want to be sneaky and hide in the background, you do that. So there's one choice where you can actually have a homosexual kiss, and the fucking right's been losing their goddamn minds over it. I don't know why. I guess they're afraid that they're accidentally going to make the choice, but because it's like period correct, it's like super secret. Like if you choose this relationship, it's like super secret. Nobody knows. You have to keep it hidden kind of deal. But just because they included that, the right has been losing their mind for months over the game, but it's finally out. I think it came out yesterday, probably today. Everybody's working on it or playing on it, but Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is the name of the game. I'm excited about that. I have to get that at some point. Anyways, what have you guys been up to? I saw that there was a discussion of drafting an executive order to do away with the Department of Education. We'll start there. Trump administration drafting an executive order to initiate Department of Education's elimination. But I think even Trump knows that he can't do it with just executive order. The Trump administration has begun drafting an executive order that would kick off the process of eliminating the Department of Education, the latest move by President Donald Trump to swiftly carry out his campaign promises. Two sources familiar with plans told CNN. The move would come in two parts, the sources said. The order would direct the Secretary of Education to create a plan to diminish the department through executive action. Trump would also push for Congress to pass legislation to end the department. As those working on the order acknowledged that shuttering the department would require Congress's involvement. So like even the people writing the EO are like, nah, I don't think so. Happy birthday. The president said Tuesday he wants his Secretary of Education pick, Linda McMahon, to put herself out of a job. I told Linda, I hope you do a great job in putting yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job. Education Department, Trump said. McMahon, who served as the head of a small business administration during Trump's first term, has yet to have a confirmation hearing for the top educator post. While calls to abolish the Education Department or merge it with another federal agency are not new, the move has historically failed to get any support from Congress. During Trump's first term as president, his administration proposed merging the education and labor departments into one federal agency. Even though Republicans controlled both the Senate and the House of Representatives at the time, the proposal did not go anywhere. This year, the Education Department is simultaneously being targeted by the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, which is not actually a real department. I know this is my argument yesterday, and somebody's like, he made it through executive order. Yeah, but real departments are made through Congress that enact them and fund them and get them going. Dozens of employees at the Education Department were placed on paid administrative leave Friday as part of Trump administration's larger effort to rid the federal workforce of employees associated with diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility efforts. On the campaign trail, Trump repeatedly pointed to the department as a sign of federal overreach and tied it to the culture war issues. We will drain the government education swamp and stop the abuse of your taxpayer dollars to indoctrinate America's youth with all sorts of things that you don't want to have our youth hearing, he said. On Tuesday, Trump, an advocate for policies that make it easier for families to spend taxpayer funds on private education, which usually fucks over schools and poorer people, right? If you take your money and everybody goes to the best school, then the schools that everybody else doesn't run to, they get fucked, right? They don't get any funding. It usually shutters those schools, right? They can't even stay open. On Tuesday, Trump, an advocate for policies that make it easier for families to spend taxpayer funds on private education, lamented U.S. educational performance and costs. We spend more per pupil than any other country in the world, and we're ranked at the bottom of the list, the very bottom, Trump said, adding that he wants to let the states run the schools. That's not true, by the way. But even if he succeeded in ending the department, it's possible that some programs and funding could be retained and shifted into other agencies, which is where they were housed before the Department of Education was created in 1979. Federal funding programs for K-12 schools that help support the education of students from low-income families and children with disabilities, for example, predated the creation of the Department of Education. When presidents have proposed cuts to the department's budget in the past, Congress has resisted and appropriated more funding than what the president asked for about 71% of the time, according to an analysis from the Brookings Institute. Even when the first Trump administration proposed cutting the department's budget, the Republican-controlled Congress at the time ultimately increased the funding. So there you go. I think he knows he can't do it through EO alone. But that doesn't mean he's not going to do it, right? I think he's still going to try to do it and then threaten people in Congress to see if they can get if he can force them to vote for it. The same way that Elon's like, anybody that doesn't get on board, you're going to be campaigned against. I'll personally fund it. Blah blah blah. All that shit. Shit is crazy. Trump hasn't been hacked. That's actually an old. That's from 2016 when he ran. That's from 2016 when he ran. If you're talking about, they said they were going to release his social security number and cell phone number and shit. Sorry. I did see it pop up again, but yeah, it's old. That was the first time he was elected when they said that he's our enemy now and we left you a little treat. Yeah, it's 2016 and before, or maybe 2017, but it was the first time I remember seeing it. So there you go. Trump's also taken a position, I guess, in the position everybody knew that he was going to take with Israel and Palestine. So we can check that out. I think he's talking about putting U.S. troops on the ground.
Good evening from Seattle. I'm Chris Hayes. Last hour, Donald Trump wrapped up a lengthy joint appearance with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And over the course of a rambling, often incoherent hour, the President of the United States appeared to announce a completely unprecedented American policy towards Gaza and the people that live there that on its face.
So before our policy was like, hey, don't commit any war crimes. We understand that you were attacked and you're trying to get the terrorists out. Don't commit any war crimes. We're going to limit the amount of military aid we're going to give to you, but we are going to give you aid. You can't annihilate the whole fucking place. You need to be targeted. You need to watch out for civilians. Now we're going to fucking occupy Gaza, destroy the buildings. You just had to listen.
Base would both violate international law and be seen by millions, maybe hundreds of millions or billions around the world as the U.S. backing explicit ethnic cleansing. The announcement has enormous implications for the region.
It's honestly hard to tell. He says so much stupid shit. Like, it does sound like he wants us to control it for some reason and it be a territory of ours that we let people in and some, I don't know. but then he always changes the point, right? So if people call him out and be like, oh, I thought you were anti-war, he's like, oh, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this, and his fucking supporters are like rabid dogs on that. That's not what he meant. What you got to think is this and that. It's just fucking wild.
Palestinians in Gaza for U.S. service members who apparently are going to be pressed into service for this project. President Trump announcing the U.S. would, in his words, own, that's the word he used, own Gaza, that it would transfer the population of the 1.8 million Palestinians who live there amidst the rubble and the damage, those who have survived the last year and a half, that they would be transferred out of Gaza into what he speculated could be as many as a dozen other countries that will apparently take them in. He said the U.S. would possibly send American troops to Gaza and develop the region into, quote, the Riviera of the Middle East.
Send American troops there and make it the Riviera of the Middle East.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited...
It's hard to even say what this... I mean, it's fucking hard to even see what the fuck is... To understand what the fuck he's saying. This would violate international law. He's going to go destroy Gaza, and he even talks about leveling the buildings.
Numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different, just can't go back.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there? Redevelopment?
I do see a long-term ownership position.
Oh, before Itsuko has an aneurysm, I got a coffee cup. A Disaster Man coffee cup. So there you go. Thank you, Itsuko. Took long enough, but still.
And I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States.
I don't know how he always says this. Like, they all said it's the best idea we've ever had. No one's ever had an idea quite like this.
States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that...
Owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs. He wants to make it a tourism hub that the U.S. owns somehow.
Will be magnificent in a really magnificent area. We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be phenomenal. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East. This could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
What? So you know that the people that live there are not going to accept this. So what does that mean? They're going to fucking die, right? Like they're not going to accept this.
Now, it's a little unclear whether this was an announcement of a new policy, although it seemed to be something he deliberated on, the commander.
It's always unclear. That's what he relies on, is it's always so fucking unclear. And if it comes out that he's trying to do something illegal, he'll just be like, that's not what I meant. I don't think so. That's not what I said.
Or it was just Donald Trump riffing off the cuff. But again, he said all this on stage with Benjamin Netanyahu after the two men had met in the Oval Office, so it seemed to be a formal policy announcement. The president
Dubai's pretty nice.
We need to try something.
Fucking Kuwait City's fucking nice as shit. Qatar, whatever you want to call it, is really nice. We had in Qatar, there is a MWR relief post or whatever for the military. There's a lot of nice places in the Middle East.
New in the Middle East, and apparently something new means the American occupation and forced depopulation and expulsion of sovereign territory currently inhabited by 1.8 million people. Senator Chris Van Hollen is a Democrat of Maryland. He sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. He's been very outspoken about U.S. policy in the Middle East. He joins me now. Senator, I guess this appears to be an actual announcement of current U.S. policy that we will own Gaza, that we will go in, and that U.S. troops might be sent. Your reaction?
So, Chris, I think we need to reiterate what the President of the United States just said, and you said it, but it bears repeating. He just said that it will be United States policy to forcibly displace 2 million Palestinians.
I've never Dubai, Qatar, Kuwait City, Bahrain. I've never even looked up. I don't know.
From the Gaza Strip.
I don't think so.
Ethnic cleansing by another name. He said the United States would then own the Gaza Strip, and that we would develop the Gaza Strip, and that other countries would take these Palestinians. He says he's talked to a lot of people, and they think it's a great idea. Well, we know that just a few weeks ago, the Arab
Arab
countries had an emergency meeting and responded forcefully against this idea and said it was unacceptable. So what the president is doing here is really throwing
and he's already talking about like you leaving the United Nations and shit like that, because none of these people are going to agree with this.
Match on an already very volatile region. This is something that Iran and our adversaries will celebrate. The super far right wing in Israel will celebrate. In fact, Ben Gvir, one of the farthest right members, has already tweeted out his support for the president's idea. So this is a very volatile mix in addition to being despicable in so many ways.
Yeah, there's a few dimensions here, it's worth, and if I sound a little stuck.
I think he just plans on sending the people that live there now to like other Arab countries.
It's because I really am. The forcible expulsion of 2 million people is an atrocity. That's the
Gaza Strip club.
If any other nation state does it, we view it as an atrocity. You can't forcibly expel people. I'm not even clear. I mean, it's obviously a violation of international law. I'm not even clear that he has American legal authority to do something like this.
Well, certainly he doesn't have the legal authority to deploy American forces, right, to push 2 million people out of Gaza. That would require congressional authorization. He also, of course, ran on being the president who was going to stop all wars, not get us in the middle of more conflicts. So this is what.
Dude, I'm telling you, fucking urban warfare in the Middle East is fucking tough. No one thought we'd be fucking 20 plus years in Iraq and Afghanistan either.
Why it is such a jaw-dropping moment for the American people and the country, for the President of the United States to say, as you say, I mean, this isn't just like a paper violation of international law. It is ethnic cleansing by another name, and it will certainly embolden our adversaries.
There is no traditional war. The people you talk to today and wave American flags and shit are shooting at you next week from behind you. Like, it's wild.
And it is really going to worry, as a soft word, it's going to scare our friends. And this is a moment, Chris, for the Arab countries to tell President Trump that they meant what they said, that they oppose this idea, and that they believe that the only way to secure long-term peace and stability and dignity for Israelis and Palestinians alike is through self-determination for both peoples and a two-state solution. That's what they've been saying. This is really going to be a moment to look carefully at how they respond.
There's a moral dimension, there's a strategic and legal dimension, but there's also a security dimension here, and you alluded to it, but I think it's worth spending some time. The U.S. has tens of thousands of service members deployed in the Middle East. The President of the United States has just announced to the world that they are soon to be used for a project of ethnic cleansing in the most volatile, sensitive region in the world, and I can't help but feel like has essentially painted a target on the back of every service.
Yeah, but Bibi Netanyahu is a fucking war criminal, right? Like, he would just wipe them off. If he wouldn't get fucking so much backlash, he would just bomb the whole place and kill everybody.
Remember, in the region.
Well, that's exactly what he's done, because this is the most sort of volatile, toxic mix of ideas that you could bring together at this particular moment. And so it will be a moment of great danger for Americans, whether they are servicemen.
I thought that Ukraine war, he said it multiple times that it'd be wrapped up before he even went to office. Why don't you work on that one and leave the adults talking about Israel?
There are embassy personnel in the region. It is such an irresponsible.
If you bring that up to any maggots now, they're like, oh, he was talking hypothetical that he would start the talks before he got into office and what? Oh, yeah, okay.
And reckless act by the President of the United States. And like you, I found myself just stunned. I mean, he'd been making comments kind of like this leading up to this moment, but to really announce it as U.S. policy, he also said, and we should be very alert for what's happening next, he said within the next 2 weeks, he's going to make some decisions regarding the West Bank. Who knows what he's thinking about there.
You're a U.S. Senator, and obviously you're in the minority. That means that you can't control what happens in the U.S. Senate.
Shut the fuck up, Kerry Gallagher. Just shut the fuck up. You're retarded. It's only 20% exposed. The other 80% is hidden. You're missing 80% of your mental capacity. That's what's going on.
But there is a lot of things that U.S. senators can do. Because of unanimous consent and because of the way the Senate functions, there's a kind of tacit set of norms that you all have to come to agreement on in order to have the place run. And as a senator, I know you and your colleagues like to see it doing work. At what point does it become important to use every procedural means to essentially bring the body to a halt until this policy and what's happening with Elon Musk and USAID and what seems to be a raft of flagrantly illegal actions are stopped or curtailed?
Well, I think that moment is now. I think that moment is now. And look,
you can tell a lot of this stuff. I think when Obama got elected, that the right wing went into like disaster mode and started planning for shit way, 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 way down the line, right? Because you can tell a lot of this stuff builds off like fucking Pizzagate and QAnon and we hate the Department of Education and weird lies about litter boxes in schools and shit like that have all built up to this, to where his supporters are like, yep, nothing fucking works. None of the systems are good. We're taking them all out and starting over. But then that's all that's going to happen is they're just going to be loyalists to one fucking person.
A group of us were outside the Department of Treasury today, essentially saying we cannot have business as usual. We're not going to let Elon Musk take over the government of the United States and take these illegal actions to stop federal funds from going to our communities, from trying to replace merit-based civil servants with political cronies, take over the payment system and get access to people's Social Security numbers. So that is now, which is why Senator Schatz and I and others have said.
What's hard about it is someone ought to do something about Elon Musk and his group already for like trying to access a SCIF. Classified material that's need to know that he didn't need to know that he wanted, but Trump's just going to pardon him, and then they're going to say that they came after my political enemies came after him.
In response to the AID action, that we're going to shut down any nominations with respect to Trump appointees in the foreign policy sphere. But I think we need to go more broadly. I've been a very clear advocate for.
There's a lot of people that know Elon personally, that have worked with him or knew him in the past or whatever, and they're basically like, Elon is fucking obsessed with going to Mars, but he also knows that it's well beyond the scope of what anybody would invest into going to Mars. It's going to be so fucking expensive. He literally thinks that he's going to start a colony on Mars, and that's where he's going to live, leave the Earth behind. So a lot of his shutting down programs, gathering money, getting people on his side, freeing up just the funds are to funnel to him to where he can literally go and live on Mars. I don't know the man. He seems like a fucking lunatic to me, but that's his goal. Free up the funds. That's what they say his goal is. Free up the funds, funnel them back to himself, and start a space race to Mars to where he can go live there and be the first person to live on a foreign body in space.
No business as usual, given all of what's happening around our country.
I mean, the President of the United States just announced the U.S. is going to back ethnic cleansing of 2 million people. I just, Senator Chris Van Hollen, Maryland, thank you for making time tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Chris, thank you.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. Legend, I got a question for you. When you left the show last night, the show was over, did you immediately go to TikTok and then hop in a live stream with Good Trouble? And it was Good Trouble and Jolly and Trump guy, and you were in there commenting, correct? Because I'm pretty sure I saw you immediately after the show was over. Like, immediately after the show was over. And he had to, like, shut down because he called somebody retarded or something. He didn't want to get a strike. And then I couldn't even respond because he shut it down as soon as I jumped on, basically. I watched, like, a couple minutes, looked at the chat, and then I saw your profile picture was the reason. I saw your profile picture there. Good Trouble's funny, but I don't even know what to say about this shit anymore. None of it doesn't even make sense. It's almost like they're seeing how much they can get away with. And the people that should have stood up and said, hey, you've went too fucking far, we're going to take this action. They're waiting on court injunctions and judges to rule. And he's got Congress, right? He's got the Senate and the House. He's got the Supreme Court. He's got pardon and immunity power, basically. He's got immunity from the Supreme Court. He's got pardon power in the office of the president. He's trying to consolidate power. He made a group of people that's not an actual department, department that just runs around fucking shit up. I don't know. Part of me thinks that the theory that he's just there to fuck shit up and then say, look, it doesn't work, we got to build it back. Right? Because he shuts everything down, breaks it, gets rid of all the employees and says, this is broke, so now we have to rebuild it. Social Security's broke, we have to rebuild it. Health insurance is broke, we have to rebuild it. But he's the one who's breaking everything. He's literally the one that's breaking everything. I kind of hate that I live in a red state right now. I mean, obviously not by choice, but I'm just poor and live in a red state. But I don't really know where to flee to. I don't know where to flee to. It's getting bad. The shit they're fucking with, like, I don't think the maggots will ever see it. I've already had arguments with them, like in comments and stuff, and I'm like, what about when he comes after Social Security disability? And people are like, well, there's a lot of people that are faking it. There's a lot of people that are just living off of it. There's a lot of people that this, that, the other, right? What happens when he comes after veteran benefits? Well, there's a lot of veterans that can work, you know. those veterans, they could probably be doing something. Maybe they get jobs with the government. Like, they will make an excuse for any fucking thing. Anything. What about him taking Meals on Wheels? Well, a lot of that money was funneled to other people, and they weren't actually feeding people. That's we just need to fix that. But I'm glad he shut it down. It does not matter. He has trained them. No matter. We should have all seen it when he's like, "What about the bleach and the light? I saw something you can kind of inject that in the body." And people are like, "That's not what he meant. He meant this super specific research that was done 2 months ago about UV light treatments in Japan only." And like, they'll make an excuse for fucking anything. The man said you could shoot up light and bleach, and they're like, "Yeah." He was talking about this bleeding edge of technology in the healthcare industry. That's what he was talking about. Really? Because they were just talking about bleach, and he's like, "Yeah, can't you inject that in the body?" I don't think he was talking about some experimental study. He's a fucking retard, dude. He barely makes coherent sentences, but that's what they like about him. I can understand everything this man says. Yeah, because you guys are both on a fucking third grade comprehension level. God forbid you have to look something up to understand what he said. It's wild, dude.
I'm joined by former Obama ethics czar.
There are
the contrarian norm.
There are some lawsuits, a bunch of lawsuits pending. Some of them were filed literally on Inauguration Day, as soon as he took office. Other ones have been filed since, but I don't know which one this one is.
Eisen, Norm, thank you for joining, and I'm actually really glad that you were able to come on today because this is a really timely moment here. Obviously, the issue of Elon Musk kind of figuring out his way for Doge to insert themselves into the Treasury, into finding access into our Treasury payment systems has made front headlines here. And
Carrie, you're right. You misspelled your. Use the wrong form. But you will learn here that you have to listen and cannot comment. They will just make fun of you. How about you take all of your fucking shit and leave with Kelly? You guys go pretend there's a secret mission going on and everything's being exposed behind the... How about you just take your shit and fucking leave? The last thing I want you to do is sit and fucking pout and tell somebody they're right in my fucking chat. We're about 6 months past the limit of bullshit I wanted to hear from you.
it's caused a lot of concern for people. You've taken action against this issue. Can you explain what you've done?
I have, Brian, by filing a lawsuit. My group, State Democracy Defenders Fund, together with Public Citizen and with labor unions and retiree organization, has filed an action saying...
Here's the comment she's referencing. Trump and his team are cleaning out all the corruption globally. Really, they haven't touched anything on a global sphere, but this should be more than evident by now to anyone. This cleanup includes the UN, the WHO, FBI, CIA, CDC, FDA, global governments, big pharma, big tech, media, etc. All of humanity will benefit from this global corruption being removed and exposed also. Just remember that this military sting operation is still only 80% covert and 20% public. You don't have to like Trump, but there will come a day when you will actually be grateful for his role in this great plan. Hack your shit and leave, or I'll help you out. You dumb fucking cunt. Kelly and Rochelle, you're done. That's it. I've lost all patience I've got for you fucking retards. You being so goddamn retarded is what enabled this motherfucker to destroy everything. Because the last two brain cells, when they rub together, the sound they make is, "Go Trump."
That this invasion of our treasury systems, which are packed with personal information about you and me and everyone we know, that Doge has no business. There's no good reason for them to be in there to have access to our information. You know, the public outcry across our nation is matched by serious legal limits protecting our privacy, the Administrative Procedures Act, other legal limits on doing this. We think...
Find me somebody, any goddamn person in the world that's like, you know, I don't really agree with Trump, And I'm not like everything Trump does is right, but I think everything he's done so far is good. You won't. It's only the people that fucking worship him. That's it. It's only the people that fucking worship him. And I have no fucking tolerance left for you retarded, inbred motherfuckers. Like, I'm done. I'm done. I have no tolerance left. I hope he takes every goddamn benefit that you've ever received for the government and charges you for it. Because the government's here for you, but I hope you don't get a goddamn thing out of it. I hope you end up in a prison in El Salvador deported. And if there's a way to fucking start reporting people for that, like a tip line, you're first on my fucking list.
I think those limits have been transgressed, and we've gone to court to protect all of us from this intrusion on the Treasury systems.
No, obviously, the public outcry is a testament to how serious this is. And obviously, time is of the essence here, because the longer that these folks who are unelected, largely working under the cloak of darkness, I mean, there's a lot of opacity surrounding Doge, the more time that they have to do this, the more access to information they'll have. And so how quick do you presume that we'll see some action from...
Remember, your line is, you're right, Kelly, while you're getting gang raped in El Salvador by MS-13.
From the judicial front.
I think you're going to see very brisk action from the courts.
You're right, Kelly.
Don't want Doge pulling
Don't let them make fun of you
for their personal information any more than you or I do, Brian. Brian and I were together at a democracy conference this weekend. I briefly visited him, and then I vanished. He said, "Where'd you go?" I said, "I got to write my lawsuit." So we treated it as a matter of the utmost urgency. You know, here at State Democracy Defenders, we literally have been working around the clock, filing lawsuits constantly, explaining what they're about. Our philosophy is court of law, court of public opinion. And this is one of the most important against the Doge. It's not our only lawsuit that we filed. In fact,
I hope the court moves on these semi-speedily, obviously within the realms of the law. But the advantage that Trump and team have is they don't give a fuck whether it's legal or not, right? Does the court stop them? Maybe. They'll find a different way. But all they have to do is be out in front. The people that are playing catch up to stop these things have to have everything in order. They have to put together a lawsuit. They have to bring it in front of the court. They have to have case law. They have to get it in front of somebody, right? They have to jump through all the hoops. Trump just moves, whether it's illegal or not. He just fucking. Oh, speaking of, hold on. I wanted to start the show with this, and I forgot. So a guy on the ground in California got a tip that for some unknown reason, the Army Corps of Engineers was coming to open all the floodgates. He did a 2-part TikTok video. It was after my show last night that I posted it. And went over like, this is what happened Thursday, this is what happened Friday, and here's where we're at. All right, here he is. I actually want to start with this. Here's part 1. They almost flooded everybody out. The same people. Here's what happened. The same people that lost their homes in like 2022 or 2023 from a flood, where they had to release the floodgates because of storms. They had so much rainwater. They almost flooded those people out again because they have no fucking idea what they're doing. They're just doing it because for political wins.
What happened on Thursday? On Thursday afternoon, Reggie got a tip from a friend of his who works with the Army Corps of Engineers that said that...
Is a journalist, by the way, from the Sun Gazette and Mid-Valley Times.
They got an order at 3 p.m. on Thursday to open Terminus Dam, which is at Lake Cahuilla, and Schaefer Dam, which is at Lake Success, to full capacity, which for Terminus Dam is 5,500 cubic feet per second. And then for Lake Success, it's 3,200 feet per second. If you don't know what cubic feet per second is, imagine a cubic foot as a basketball. And now imagine 5,500 of those pouring out of the lake every second. So it's a ton of water. And so their order was to open up these floodgates at full capacity by 4, within an hour, despite the fact that nobody was asking for these things.
Nobody needed this water, right? Nobody needed this water. It wasn't for wildfires. It wasn't for farmers. It wasn't for fish. It wasn't for any reason other than Trump can say, I made water. Like, but the water doesn't go to Los Angeles. That's not how it gets there.
And that order came down from the Army Corps of Engineers. The first story that we ran, which was written by Lois Henry, who shout out to sjvwater.org, her story on Thursday was about the release of this water. At that time, we didn't know why we wanted to release the water.
And they sent it from Washington to the California Army Corps of Engineers, a station there, and told them they wanted to release at full capacity, wide open all the fucking floodgates.
We only talked to the people who were down here locally who were very concerned about the downstream effects of what happens when you release that much water. The Army Corps of Engineers in Washington, D.C. didn't tell us why they wanted to do this. So we ran that story with commentary from water masters and irrigation districts.
Merbird gifted BugJude53 a subscription. Merbird gifted a tier 1 sub to BugJude53. They have given 36 gift subs in the channel.
Thank you for sub.
And they said, given their expertise, they didn't know why that much water needed to be released. There wasn't going to be an impending storm in this area.
So they talked to every relevant person that was there that controls the water flow, the environmental issues around it, the fucking farmers. No one knows why are we doing this?
Wouldn't release that water from the lake because you don't have to release that water from the lake. Because even if we did get a big storm, there's enough capacity in the lake to handle that amount of water. So to release it,
I think one was at like 21% and the other one was like at 20% or something like that.
Didn't make any sense. But that was their best guess as to why the Army Corps of Engineers was told to open up the gates. So all day on Thursday, there's this battle going on.
So their guess was maybe they think the storm that's getting ready to hit Northern California is actually hitting Southern California. Maybe that's what they think. And we just need to tell them, hey, that storm's, first of all, we got capacity. And second of all, that storm's not going to hit here. It's in Northern California. Because at this same time, Gavin Newsom was directing state agencies in the northern part of the state that they were probably going to have to open floodgates because they were expecting a big storm.
Between the local folks who are the water masters and irrigation districts and what have you, talking to the Sacramento division of the Army Corps of Engineers, telling them that if you release this way, you will have flooding. There will be flooding in Wood Lake. There will be flooding in Lemon Cove. There will be flooding in Porterville. And those will be the same people who were flooded out in 2020.
God damn. I know it would have sucked for the people there. We just went through a flood with a hurricane and shit. But could you imagine how quickly Trump would say he had nothing to do with it if the floodgates would have been open and they'd let them flood those fucking people out again?
Who've just rebuilt their homes. So whenever we got this information on Thursday around 3 o'clock, we talked with Lois Henry and we let her know that this was happening because she has all of the water contacts. We didn't think about our own journalism at that time. What we did instead was hand that off to her, and then we called the county who would be looking out for Lemon Cove. We called Ramon Lara, who would be looking out for Wood Lake, and then we called the city manager for Porterville, who would be looking out for Porterville. Because
so basically, they contacted all the towns as like, hey, they have an order to open these floodgates. People are going to fucking die if this happens.
Those areas would have flooded had this been carried out at 4 o'clock the way that they had intended. And when we called them, they were shocked that this was going to happen. Nobody told them either that these gates were supposed to open up. And so we were trying to warn them that they needed to evacuate parts of their town so that way life could get out of the way, even though they're going to be losing their property. By the end of Thursday, I went to Terminus Dam and I talked to the folks who were there, and not fantastic in terms of information, because at this point, we only knew about the order. We never actually got a physical copy of the order. We just knew that this was going to happen. So this was just a tip, and then it turned out to be a little bit more than that. Lois Henry's making her calls, and then we're kind of trying to follow up with her. So we're calling Sacramento. I was at Terminus Dam. I was interviewing the deputy operations manager, Ryan Watson, who was there. They had a public affairs specialist there too. And I was asking them for a physical copy of the order, which they did not give me. So came up empty-handed. However, I did find out that they were going to open up the floodgates that night, which they ended up doing at 6 p.m., starting at 50 cubic feet per second, and then ramping it up to 1,545 cubic feet per second. And that's where it stayed. The local stakeholders here got in contact with Sacramento's Army Corps of Engineers division, and they convinced the Washington Army Corps of Engineers to revise their output.
They literally had to talk them down to keep them from flooding people out of their fucking houses. Again, for no reason. This water does not go to the place where the LA wildfires is. It just doesn't go there. It does not go there.
Which was 5,500 cubic feet per second, and then brought it down to a manageable 1,545.
So instead of 5,500, they got 1,500
feet per second for Terminus Dam, which is Lake Cahuilla, and then brought it down from 3,200 cubic feet per second, which was the original command in Lake Success, to something smaller. I think it was 800 cubic feet per second. So something more manageable where the flooding wouldn't happen. And that's how we ended Thursday until Lois came out with her story, which then we republished on the Sun Gazette and Mid-Valley Times.
All right, so that was the all-day Thursday. This is Friday of the release, the actual day, the morning after they started releasing water.
Went down on Friday. We came in on Friday understanding that...
Yeah, the fire was contained then. It was 100% contained, and they were working on it before the order even came out.
Overnight, they were going to be starting the release of water. We still didn't know why they were releasing the water, because the storm that was coming wasn't going to hit here. It's going to hit in Northern California. Lake Kauai, they can hold up to 185,000 acre feet. They were only at 38,000 acre feet. So even if we had a big storm, there'd be no reason to release the water. They can get down to as low as 12,000 acre feet. But if they do that, what they are releasing is water for no reason that we could think of at the time. So bringing the water level down to 12,000 acre feet and not keeping what you have, even though you have a ton of capacity for more, didn't make sense, because we know that this summer is going to be a dry summer, and we know that this winter is going to be a dry winter for here. So there's going to be a heavy need for the water this summer and spring. So why are they releasing it? That's what we're trying to figure out.
And then he's going to blame Gavin Newsom for not managing the water when there's a drought and the crops are fucking dying on the vine.
Based on the information that we got and understanding this came from the Army Corps of Engineers, which falls under the Department of Defense, which falls under the White House, we knew that this was a federal call and not a state call. So we knew which area of government to look in. So the first story on Thursday is...
So a lot of the dams in California are owned by the federal government. That's just a big project that the federal government has big spending, and they come in and do it. Now, the water that's being held in the lakes is actually owned by the state. The state owns the water, even though they don't own some. They own some of the dams, but most of the dams they don't own. The federal government owns it. The state owns the water. But if they open the floodgates, the state still owns the water, but they're just losing it. There's nothing they can do with it, right? They can't tell the federal government not to open the gates.
Is about the Army Corps of Engineers.
I mean, they can try, but they don't have to listen to them.
Releasing the water. We didn't know the reason why. By the end of Friday, we finally got confirmation from the federal Army Corps of Engineers, who said that they're following an executive order from President Trump, who said that he wanted to take water from these areas and then give it to the Southern California wildfires. But here's the thing. There's no real way to get that water from these lakes to Southern California in an efficient manner, especially provided that these fires are now 100% contained as of Saturday. So
there's no way for this water to leave those dams and go to wildfires in Los Angeles. They're on the other side of the fucking valley, and the wildfires are fed by reservoirs and aqueducts. They're not fed by a stream that comes from the fucking dam.
Releasing it on Thursday and Friday and then letting it leave the dam, it's just going to be sunk into the ground and not help the fires at all. And so this is leaving farmers, water irrigation districts, and water masters perplexed as to what we are going to do this spring and summer when we're in a drought. The local said, we understand that you want to do this, but if you do it the way that you're telling us to do it, you are going to flood places. And then they told that to the Sacramento office for the Army Corps of Engineers, and then they had to tell it to Washington, D.C. because Washington, D.C. doesn't understand.
The aquifer's underground. It replenishes itself, right? That's why they pump it up into reservoirs. There's hundreds of years of water worth in the aquifer. Like, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
And that if they do it that way, that there's going to be collateral damage for doing it that way. So there was that piece, but none of it necessarily matters because you can't take that water and send it down south anyways in an efficient enough manner for it to matter. It became really clear that this is a political move, not a practical move. On Thursday, we reached out to the congressman of the...
Trump's followers think that there's just a pipe that comes out of the dam that goes to L.A. into a fire hydrant or some shit. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck their argument is. Like, Trump turned on the water. They're going to fight the fires now. It's like turning on the water in Asheville, North Carolina, and expecting the ocean to get deeper in Myrtle Beach. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
David Valadeo, Vince Fong, and Jim Costa. They didn't call us back. Politico picked up this story on Friday. They didn't call them back either. New York Times picked up the story on Friday as well. Also nothing from the congressman. What do you do? Not only is Gavin Newsom focusing on...
That's a bot.
Focusing on an atmospheric river that is hitting Northern California. So Newsom put out an executive order to say, we need to release water from the dams closer north because they will overflow. And then he's going to take a political win and say that he's putting water back into groundwater. Sure, whatever. That's not so much the case. But he's fighting two different fronts. He does have the fire in Southern California, but that is now 100% contained. So the work is almost done there. And then he has this natural disaster coming. So now he's letting water out simultaneously at the way that Trump is. The dams are operated by the federal government. The water in them is state water. But if you open up the dams, it doesn't really matter that you own the water or not.
So that's what happened on Thursday and Friday, and no one knew what the fuck was going on or why.
This is a disclaimer that works for any situation whenever you're talking about government. Government is a three-layer cake, as they always love to tell me in Master's in Public Administration program. There is the federal government, there's the state government, and then there's the local government. There is no talk of the local government in the Constitution, but there is local government in a very practical sense. The federal government owns parts of California. California has to work with the federal government on the parts that it owns. So in this case, whenever we're talking about lakes and we're talking about dams, the dams are owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. Unless it's a state dam, then it's owned by the state. Forget that for this story. That doesn't really matter. The dams are operated by the federal government. The federal government can do almost anything that it wants with its own property.
Yes, so the reason they hold that water and don't release it at this time of year is because when they have a dry summer, they're going to need it for irrigation. Like there's huge irrigation pumps and ditches that basically flood these fields that they're going to use that water for later on.
When they say open the floodgates, they open the floodgates. And what can the state do? They can lodge a lawsuit. That's going to take time. They can try to interject. That's going to take time. There might be an injunction. I don't think that happened in this case. But essentially, the state is sitting on their hands while the federal government is taking this water from this lake and then pushing it downstream. And I think it's going to end up in the Tulare Lake bed. I hope the story sheds some light on the backstory of how this came to be. And I also hope that it informs you on what happened and then what might happen next. This is a disclaimer that works for any situation whenever you're talking about government. Government is a three-layer cake, as they always love to tell me in Master's in Public Administration program. There is the federal government, there's the state government, and then there's the local government.
There you go. That's the story, and why no water actually reached LA. None of it. It didn't do anything. It was for no purpose whatsoever other than Trump can say, I turned on some water, and we wasted water that we're going to need this summer, and he'll find somebody else to blame by then.
We were so worried about what might happen here and the cloak of secrecy under which this Doge is operating and the questions about its legality. The very first lawsuit of any kind filed against Donald Trump, I had somebody stationed to file it as soon as he took his oath of office, was to move against the Doge and to get the courts to make sure it's following the law. And now you see why we sued, because of this Treasury scandal. So so we've been hammering on other issues, constitutional violations, legal, administrative violations. The president is running amok. He promised to be a dictator on day one. Brian, we've talked about this. Those who assume dictatorial powers very seldom voluntarily relinquish them after one day. And every day he's attempted to batter our Constitution, our laws, our rule of law system. But the good news is my co-counsel, Public Citizen, our group, State Democracy Defenders Fund, and so many others have been in court suing, litigating. ACLU is my partner in the birthright citizenship case.
Again, he's got the advantage. It's like a first mover's advantage, right? He just does whatever the fuck he wants because he's not worried about the Constitution. He's not worried about laws. He's not worried about blowback. He's not worried about getting in trouble. He just does whatever the fuck he wants, and everybody else is behind trying to catch up in court.
Donald Trump tried to tear up the Constitution, the citizenship provisions of the Constitution. At the Contrarian, we write about this a lot. We're meeting shock and awe that Donald Trump is doing on behalf of autocracy with democracy, pro-democracy shock and awe groups and individuals across the country. But we need much more.
Norm, how confident are you that even if you're successful in this litigation, I know you've been successful in these other TROs, these temporary restraining orders, how confident are you that for something like this, where Trump has just kind of imbued Elon Musk with all this power, and really he's seeing very little pushback on the legislative front, that the executive branch is even going to respect any rulings handed down by a judge?
Well, first of all, the credit is broadly distributed. Government officials have been litigating and securing TROs, C3 groups. We've been very active litigants out there. And I am confident that the courts, based on preliminary indications, are up to this challenge. Trump's own party's in control of Article 1, the Congress. Trump himself is in control of Article 2, the presidency. Although, remember, why is he attacking all these public servants? I'm also working on behalf of our terrific FBI and DOJ public servants who he's mercilessly attacked.
Yeah, he wanted to say he sent the military there.
But Donald Trump has control from the White House. Article 3, the judiciary, is pushing back, and that's what we're going to look to as the front line of defense here. And so far, that's promising. And I think it's a wake-up call for the American people. They're not all the way awake yet. They're numb and they're shocked about what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, it is hard to believe.
Norm, are you able to go into any more detail about some of the retaliatory action that the unlawfully fired FBI agents or any other executive branch officials, prosecutors are doing in order to push back against these moves by the Trump administration?
You know, it's so ironic that Donald Trump was complaining about the defund the police movement, because he wants to disable the police.
Right.
You have, and he's supporting criminals. You have 1,600 insurrectionists who he pardoned on day one. over 140 of whom violently assaulted law enforcement. They've been let loose on the street. And now we have a story. He's trying to get the names of every FBI and DOJ person who worked on those cases. There's no good reason to do that except to put those names out there, put those people at risk. He's supporting criminals and he's attacking our law enforcement, both at the FBI and DOJ. I think it's absolutely outrageous. And again, I don't believe the American people will stand for this. I think that they are going to make their displeasure known. And
God, everybody's playing that Kingdom Come game, like all the game streamers or whatever. I can't wait to get it. It's going to be awesome.
I'm not going to get into too many details about it, but I don't think the courts are going to stand for it either, Brian. And as you know, I sent a letter to the Department of Justice with a distinguished former federal judge, Nancy Gertner, who's on our Democracy Defenders Board, Mark Zaid, one of our nation's best and most experienced litigators, particularly representing DOJ and FBI officials. And we wrote the Department of Justice yesterday, and we said there will be serious consequences at law if you persist on this court. At least for today, the names have not been released, and that would be a tremendous wrong of historical proportions, and folks are not going to accept that.
So would it be fair to say that it is unlikely that these prosecutors are going to roll over in the face of these attacks by the Trump administration?
I've been so pleased at both DOJ and FBI at the integrity. For example, press reports that FBI senior officials, starting with the acting.
Sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and get death threats. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, you're just going to have to do it. You can't let that change the way you fucking vote.
Director have insisted on.
I get death threats all the time.
I have objected that some of the SACs, special agents in charge around the country, have been strongly defending their people. There's no good reason to collect and disseminate this information. And I think Donald Trump made it.
I might play it on stream. It's one of those games that takes a lot. Like, it's very, very, very heavy in the story. Like, you start like as a blank slate, and all the choices you make you who you are, basically. And it's set in, like, I don't know, the medieval times. The first one was really good. I didn't play it on stream. I played it, but I didn't play it on stream. The second one seems fucking awesome.
Big mistake with his overreach in all of these different areas, because instead of slowly boiling the frog, he's thrown it in the microwave, and it's heinous. It's heinous. The reality is as heinous as the metaphorical misconduct.
Why is it up to you and your team to do so much of what Congress should be doing? I mean, in a normal world, this is the kind of thing, especially appropriations, is the kind of thing that the legislative branch would jealously guard. And yet they're completely content to just allow the executive branch, allow Donald Trump to usurp all of their power, all of their autonomy. And so now the onus is falling on you and groups that you work with and other groups that are aligned with the mission, when it should be the legislative branch who should be there protecting their own power.
Brian, we know that in a democracy, ultimately it comes down to you and to me. And a democracy is only as strong as its people. And unfortunately, the majorities, the GOP majorities in the House and in the Senate, have shown bend the knee, kiss the ring, and bow down. Sometimes Trump doesn't even need to ask them.
Let me see what this is right here. This is from 50 minutes ago. Judge issues an order against Trump.
A federal judge in the District of Columbia has just ruled against Donald Trump's administration, issuing a temporary restraining order to stop him from freezing funds to the states and other not-for-profit groups, especially ones that he finds offensive because of their quote-unquote woke ideology. And in doing so, Judge Ali Khan has also made a finding that the Trump administration is manipulating the judicial process through the false pretense of single-handedly trying to end the litigation by removing the freeze after she found that they did nothing of the sort, citing the press secretary's posting on social media that indicated that the freeze was still ongoing. This is now another temporary restraining order against the Trump administration.
So here's what's so fucking crazy. Here's what's so fucking crazy. You know the press secretary that's married to the old man, Carolyn Levitt or whatever? They pulled back the order they put out about the funding freeze, right? They put it out there. It got a lot of hate. They pulled it back, okay? Knowing that this was tied up in court, right? Somebody was already challenging it. Now, if this gets to court and the memo's already been retracted, there's nothing to proceed on, right? They put out the memo, then they retracted it. There's nothing to proceed on, right? It basically just disappears. It goes nowhere in court. But then Carolyn Levitt, the fucking press secretary, before it got to the judge, came out on Twitter and said, oh, no. Just because we pulled that memo back, that was just to change a few things. We're still 100% doing the funding freeze. And then the judge is like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? Like, if you would have just left it the way it was and there wouldn't have been a funding freeze, you would have been fine. But now you're coming out and telling us there is like a secret funding freeze. So the judge had to rule on it.
If you're playing at home, it's TRO number 3. And I'm going to break it down for you now that we've got Judge Ali Khan's decision in our hands here on the Midas Touch Network and Legal AF. Let's dive right in. I'm so excited my camera's moving. Here we go. You may recall, and if not, let me tell you straight, that there were 2 separate filings that were made by 2 separate groups, one in Rhode Island and the other one in the District of Columbia, that went almost simultaneously against the Office of Management and Budget and the Trump administration. The one in Rhode Island brought by 22 states and their attorneys general before Judge McConnell. I reported on that he issued his temporary...
The sad part is, even when they get this shit going again, there's going to be people that are affected by this. They might be people fucking die or go hungry or get behind on bills or whatever it might be, right? Whatever the funding was for. It'll still fuck those people over just because they did it without any regard to anything. If they want to go through and fucking audit everything, fine. What was the point of freezing all of these things and being like, oh, well, we have to look at them? What difference is 2 days from now if it's still funding and you read it then? And find it, we got to shut this one down. It's actually a fucking front for the CIA or whatever the fuck you think you're going to find.
Restraining order, also citing that he did not believe the press secretary or her announcement that the freeze had been unfrozen because funds were still not flowing to these organizations or entities pursuant to it. And she had told others in social media in the world that this freeze was still on. That was in Rhode Island with Judge McConnell. Then we had in Judge...
That was the Rhode Island one where she told people on social media that the freeze was still on.
Ali Khan's courtroom in the Federal District of Columbia Court. She issued an administrative stay last week. She held oral argument and briefing on the 3rd, and now she's issued her 30-page decision in which she has found that the plaintiffs here, which are not-for-profit organizations that rely on funding to states and funding from the federal government in order to exist. So the National Council of Not-for-Profits and a series of not-for-profits, including ones dedicated to healthcare for children, homelessness, food, medicine, and other things that rely as their lifeblood. I mean, they can't make their budget. They can't make their payroll without federal funding that has now been cut off by Donald Trump. And in terms of the hearing, Judge Ali Khan found that they're not even consistent at the federal government level. Surprise, surprise, because they cut off funding to everything, not just to the 8 or 9 executive orders that Donald Trump entered in order to go after woke ideology. And in terms of going after woke ideology, Judge Ali Khan found it was more likely than not the likelihood of success on the merits at trial that these particular plaintiffs...
So there's already something in law called impoundment, and it's illegal, right? So they went out of their way to say, this isn't impoundment. This is just a temporary pause to make sure that the money is going where they say it's going and doesn't go against the new executive orders. Impoundment is an act. Now you tell me if it sounds like impoundment or not. I'm going to read you the definition, okay? And you tell me if that's what this sounds like. Impoundment is an act by a president of the United States of not spending money that has been appropriated by the U.S. Congress. Does that sound like what Trump did? That's 100% already illegal. But they want to say it's not impoundment because, we're just going to freeze it until a lot of these NGOs or government programs dry up and cease to exist while we're looking at it. It's 100% impoundment, and it's illegal. Thomas Jefferson was the first president to exercise the power of impoundment in 1801. The power is available to all presidents up to and including Richard Nixon, and was regarded as a power inherent to the office, although one within limits. The Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974 was passed in response to the abuse of power under President Nixon. The act removed that power, and Train v. City of New York, whose facts predate the 1974 Act, but which was argued before the U.S. Supreme Court after its passage, closed potential loopholes in the 1974 Act. The president's ability to indefinitely reject congressionally approved spending was thus removed.
These not-for-profit plaintiffs are going to be...
So again, it's already been passed. Congress has already said it. It's already been allocated. Companies and NGOs and states are already expecting it. This is 100% impoundment.
To prove 2 things. 1, that the decision by the Office of Management and Budget under Donald Trump to freeze this funding effectively to all not-for-profits in the country was arbitrary and capricious, not done properly under the Administrative Procedures Act. But she also said it violated an entire bulwark of constitutional protections because it is Congress, not the president, that has the power of the purse. It is Congress, not the president, that has the sole ability on appropriations. And Donald Trump trying to step in and freeze or impound, called impound funding already allocated by Congress is unconstitutional. When Congress says we are going to allocate funding and it's going to go to this not-for-profit and that not-for-profit and this state and that state, you can't just arbitrarily say, well, the president decided, even though you've allocated it and you've got the power of the purse string, Congress, I, as the executive branch, are not going to execute on it. We're going to block it. That is unconstitutional. That is a violation of the APA. So Justice Judge McConnell in Rhode Island a couple of days ago issued his temporary restraining order. Judge Ali Khan has issued.
Impeachment is supposed to be the ultimate. I guess you could have avenues that go around him. So people at the places that disperse this fund know about the current order, know that they're supposed to do it regardless of whether the president and his people try to stop it or not, and send it anyway. But impeachment is supposed to be the ultimate holding people accountable. Now, will Republicans grow a fucking spine? I don't know. He's got this once in a lifetime fucking alignment of the stars to where even if he just tells everybody to fuck off, starts doing whatever he wants, rolls tanks into fucking Senate, would they actually impeach him? I don't know.
Her temporary restraining order against the Trump administration. We now have 3 of them. One related to birthright citizenship.
By the way, all the people, it's like, he hates Project 2025. He's never even heard of it. He's got Agenda 47. Then why is he doing all this shit from Project 2025 like we told you he was going to do?
Trump's executive order that a federal agency should look mothers and children in the eye and deny them U.S. citizenship, even if the baby was born on U.S. soil in violation of the 14th Amendment. That's been temporarily restrained by a Seattle, Washington federal judge, Judge Coffenor. We have Judge McConnell, Rhode Island, on behalf of the 22 states on the federal funding freeze, TRO, and now we've got Judge Ali Khan, all simultaneously, 3 for 3 for these attorneys general and not-for-profits. I've said it before to give you some context. 1,000 lawsuits or more were filed against the first Trump administration, and the attorneys general then were batting about 80% in success ratio. Right now, these groups are batting 100%. Every court that they choose, every judge that they obtain writes detailed orders against the Trump administration who's out of control. How do you control out of control? You run
Idaho right now, empowered by the crazy shit that is going on at the national level, is trying to go back. You know, there was a ton of people. I know it's not everybody. I know might not be you, and it's not the hardcore MAGA retards and white nationalists. There's a ton of people that said in these polls that they've taken that going back and taking away like the right of gay people to get married is just too far, right? That crosses the line. We've already established that. Who cares if they get married? That's been law for so long, blah, blah, blah. That'd be Idaho, empowered by this, is going after gay marriage. They're going after gay marriage right now. So the people that's like, oh, if they ever went after gay marriage, that'd be too far for me. Fuck that. Fuck that. Like, it's time to stand up now. You said you would. Where's your fucking spine? Older Millennial is one of these. You know, Older Millennial that we cover on TikTok all the time? He's one of these people. Said that if they ever went after gay marriage, that'd be too far for him, no matter who it was. He's one of those people. And when he was confronted with it in a live stream the other day, saying Idaho literally passed a bill calling for the U.S. Supreme Court to reverse same-sex marriage, he was like, I don't think it'll ever get that far.
Into federal court, you get temporary restraining orders. That's the first step. Temporary restraining order is temporary, subject to a preliminary injunction that'll be coming down the road probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to tell you straight, as a lawyer who practices like this, if you get a temporary restraining order, you almost always get the preliminary injunction. Now, let me read to you from the actual order. First, let me tell you what Judge Ali Khan, I'll tell you more about her background in a minute. Judge Ali Khan, her actual order, and then I'll tell you the findings that the Trump administration has lied to her, and therefore she is ruling against him in this case. It's on page 29. Ordered that
So the Trump administration lied and said the freeze wasn't going on, but his press secretary is obviously out here telling people that the freeze is going on her official social media, and states are still reporting, well, they're saying they're not freezing this, but we're not getting the money, so obviously it's frozen.
Defendants are enjoined from implementing, giving effect to, or reinstating under a different name the directives in OMB, Office of Management and Budget, Memorandum M2513, with respect to the disbursement of federal funds under all open awards. Funding by Congress needs to go to these entities.
Reinstating under a different name. Again, they pulled this, the memorandum. They pulled that back, but they're just doing it under a different name.
Ordered that defendants must provide written notice of the court's temporary restraining order to all agencies. The written notice shall instruct those agencies that they may not take steps to implement, give effect to, or reinstate under a different name the directions of OMB M2513 with respect to the disbursement of federal funds under all open awards. It also instructs those agencies to release any disbursements on open awards that are paused due to that memo. It is further ordered, page 30, that this order shall apply to the
Yeah, if you want to support the show, leave a donation. That'd be great.
maximum extent provided by law. Ordered that the defendant shall file a status report. That's the government. Trump, on or before Feb 7, apprising the court of the status of its compliance. The party shall meet and confer concerning a joint status report on Feb 7. We will get our hands on this joint status report about the compliance with this particular order. I may be very open with you on this podcast, but off the air, I really do value my privacy. But of your home, blind, it to the pros. You won't.
I want to skip his ad. Go buy his blinds if you want to. 3dayblinds.com. Legal AF.
Be guessing treatments of AF / all the Trump administration. Let me read to you from the section in which the judge has called out and said point blank she does not trust at all the Trump administration in these proceedings, who tried to divest both the Rhode Island court and this D.C. court of its jurisdiction by saying, we said freeze everything? Well, it's rescinded. Hoping that they'd have the argument that it's both moot, meaning we don't need any judicial intervention because we've taken it back ourselves, and you've lost jurisdiction because we've rescinded the act that's at the heart of the matter. And the judge said, no,
So that was the only reason they rescinded it, is because they knew that judges were probably going to stop it.
A craven attempt to manipulate the jurisdiction by saying green light, red light, and leaving the plaintiffs in the lurch, who have to make payroll. People have to get paychecks. People have to who fund these programs have to actually pay vendors. Doesn't work for her. Let me read to you from the actual page here, where she attacks the Trump administration through the press secretary, Carolyn Levitt. On page 15, thank you. On page 15, she says that within hours of the OMB's rescission, where the OMB with a one-liner said we are rescinding, White House press secretary Levitt, that's Carolyn Levitt, she's the world's youngest press secretary.
That's how fucking dumb she is. They were trying to hide it.
The decision was to have no tangible effect on the federal funding freeze. She did that on X. Moreover, she explained that the
rescission of that memo was to have no tangible effect on the federal funding freeze. That's what she said on our official Twitter account.
The primary purpose of the rescission was to end any confusion created by the court's injunction. That statement, unambiguously, the judge continues, reflects that the rescission was in direct response to this court's issuance of an administrative stay on January 28th. For defendants to innocently claim that the OMB's post-stay actions are merely a noble attempt to end confusion strains credulity. Here's what she said point blank, Judge Ali Khan on page 14. The voluntary cessation doctrine is especially important in cases where the defendant is suspected.
The problem with the power to arrest or put people in contempt would be the first step, right? If they don't follow your orders, a standing order, put them in contempt of court, which can lead to an arrest, right? Imprisonment, is Trump's pardon power.
That's the Trump administration of, quote, manipulating the judicial process through the false pretense of single-handedly ending a dispute. And that's what she's found that the Trump administration.
And what's crazy is his most ardent supporters are so fucking retarded. They're cheering this on. They're like, yeah, that's what we voted for. Higher prices, yeah. Tariffs that don't do anything, yeah. Dismantle Social Security, yeah. They have no idea what's going on.
Is done. They have false pretense of ending the funding freeze in order to avoid a court case, and she's not going to allow that. She also cites through the Rhode Island case and says she knows that that's been temporarily restrained. She agrees with that. Let me just read to you also from some of the funding that gets denied here, just so you know what's at stake. On page 7, Judge Ali Khan says, plaintiffs allege she finds injury to give them standing to bring this case. On page 7, she says plaintiffs allege that even a temporary pause in funding to their members, such as the American Public Health Association and Main Street Alliance, would destroy their ability to provide medical and low-income childcare services. So when next time you're voting for MAGA and Donald Trump, he's against medical and low-income childcare services because he cut off the funding to it if it wasn't for Judge Ali Khan and Judge O'Connell. Particularly, plaintiffs had numerous declarations on page 8 showing that many organizations need weekly injections of federal funding in order to continue operating. One health center pays its employees biweekly on Thursdays, over to page 9, requiring it to draw down grant funds on the preceding Tuesday. Some of these employees live paycheck to paycheck, meaning that a single missed payment could prevent them from buying groceries or paying rent.
Right now, there's still people standing up to them. But another one of his things is to fire federal employees or have them resign with 8 months' pay and put in loyalists. Why would that need it? If you're doing things for the good of America, why would you need a loyalist to sign on with everything you say? Why do you need a fucking TV host as the Secretary of Defense? Why do you need this crazy conspiracy theorist as the leader of the FBI? why do you need this fucking nut job who killed a bunch of kids in Samoa to be leader of the healthcare system, right? Like,
Separately, a member of a
HHS.
tribal organization was forced to lay off 2 employees because they could not access grant funds. Another not-for-profit dedicated to ending homelessness was forced to suspend a birth certificate and identification program just so that it could keep its employees on payroll. See, this is what not-for-profits do. Not-for-profits don't make a profit. Their funding comes primarily from grants from the federal government and state government. You cut off the grants, you cut off the funding, these people can't operate, and therefore you shut down all of these things, many of them because Donald Trump is going after their quote-unquote woke ideology, which is a First Amendment violation. So you have 3 main violations in all these cases that I want you to keep an eye on closely, that we are. Constitutional violation.
the government can't go after somebody for their beliefs. Imagine a president gets in and he's like, well, we hate Christians. How mad they'd be if they're like, well, we're shutting down this soup kitchen and we're shutting down this food bank and we're shutting down this homeless program because they worship this God.
For violation of the appropriations provision of the Constitution, because the power of the purse strings resides solely and exclusively with Congress, not with the executive branch, the president. 2, the Administrative Procedures Act has been violated because these federal agencies have to.
You can't convince me that Trump is this smart. I've heard him speak, right? This was the culmination of Project 2025. It was a right-wing think tank of how to set the country back 100 fucking years.
Operate consistent with the Administrative Procedures Act. If they pass out of the blue
and keep power forever.
And new administrative procedures, new laws that are arbitrary and capricious, you got a violation of the APA. And third, First Amendment, because if you're going after them, and that's what the president's memorandum said, if you're going after them for First Amendment violation because of their woke ideology, we're on to the First Amendment. First Amendment, Appropriations Act, and violation, constitutional, and violation of the APA, we're going to see that over and over and over again in every case that's going to be filed against the Trump administration for all of these executive orders. When will they learn? We're already up to almost a lawsuit a day. 3 temporary restraining orders already. And we are only, as of today, 2 weeks into this administration. You do the math. I'm going to continue to follow it all right here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. Thank you for joining us here. We sit at the intersection of law and politics. I bring you this commentary and analysis, hopefully like no other.
It's a military psychological warfare thing, shock and awe. We've heard about it before, right? You throw as much shit out there as you can. And people don't even have time to respond to it all. Much less look into it, much less fight it, stand up to it.
On YouTube, exclusively here on the Midas Touch Network and over on our companion channel, if you will, Legal AF MTN for Midas Touch Network. Help us continue to grow that pro-democracy channel. Follow me, Michael Popak, a number of ways. Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time here on this YouTube channel. We've got Legal AF, the podcast, and on audio podcast platform. Then I've got Popak Live, a new podcast on Tuesday night.
That was actually really good. Check out Midas Touch and Legal AF. Let's do this. I think we got a Destiny clip.
God, I don't approve of the sexism, but man, Kalinsky is just slamming those bangers out.
Madam Secretary, economists.
This is playing dress up everywhere she goes.
Why is she dressed like a cowboy? Why is she dressed like a cowboy? Like a Barbie cowboy?
All across the board are warning that ultimately tariffs lead to higher prices for consumers and that these tariffs in particular could see.
I told you it was coming. Paying higher prices means you're a real patriot. But he ran on lowering prices. That's why everybody voted for him, remember? But if you're a real patriot, you'll pay whatever he says.
Prices increase on food, electronics, and cars. The president himself acknowledging this morning these tariffs could cause, quote, some pain.
She's trying to ride on Beyonce's Grammy wins.
How is this move?
Liberal media. Quote, some pain, end quote.
These tariffs could cause, quote, some pain. How is this move helping President Trump fulfill his campaign promise to lower prices?
Okay. All you have to do are say things that are true, clippable, and agreeable. You don't have to actually answer the question. Let's see if she goes for that angle. So we ignore what she just said. We don't care. Okay. I'm trying to think. I'm just trying to see if I can get my politicking down. So true, clippable, and agreeable. These countries were taking advantage of us Trump is finally righting the ship. No more free rides. We're going to make America
she's from South Dakota.
business is great again. That's my guess. Let's see. Oh, we need to do something about the drug crisis. Maybe.
It's because she went on some horseback tour of the border or some shit, so they dressed her up like a cowboy.
You know, you've seen the president take action already this week with Colombia, and you saw Colombia react in a very positive way that was good for everyone involved. Canada, Mexico, other countries have the opportunity to do exactly the same. So with a strong leader, he has laid down exactly what he is going to do and what the consequences are. I encourage their...
He literally hasn't. He literally... Okay, fuck.
They actually said, what are the demands? What are the demands for this? If you're putting a tariff, what are the demands? We'll just see what happens. That's what he said in the Oval Office. Are you still considering those tariffs? And what would you like to see to alleviate those tariffs? We'll see what happens.
Said true. It doesn't have to be true. I'm thinking of just statements that are like, you just say things that are like, oh, we want to make America stronger. Okay. But he literally didn't lay. Okay, never mind. Okay, I guess we can still just lie. My bad. Okay. I'm working it. I'm getting my mind more in that world. The president literally didn't lay out anything. They asked him point blank, what could he...
It's almost like we're speed running towards what would piss off the rest of the world enough to where they invade the United States.
These countries do to avoid the tariffs, and Trump said nothing.
He is going to do and what the consequences are. I encourage their leadership teams to get on board and to make sure that they're not pushing up prices. If prices go up, it's because of other people's reactions to America's laws. And that's what President Trump is doing. He is making sure that we're not picking and choosing winners and losers, that the law applies equally to...
I do not condone political violence. Ever. Well, not ever. Okay, not ever. I do not condone political violence. Let's just leave it there. And back when there were like attempts and stuff going on, I was like, man, you know, why are these people getting that radicalized that quick? But I can also see a future in a month where people are like, you know,
Everybody, American citizens. It applies to those who are here illegally and are world leaders across the country and across the world. They can help us, or they're going to face some consequences.
Okay.
What is it? What was that an answer to? Who is she talking to?
Nobody.
Typing in the right audio there? The tariff lobby, headed by the globalist and always wrong Wall Street Journal, is working hard to justify countries like Canada. I love that Trump gets to create his own grammar, randomly capitalized. Like, these are the types of emails that I get that I'm like, oh, this guy might be schizophrenic, I think. Like, these read, if he could only have like bold and italics and underlines, I'm like, oh, this guy's a schizo that's emailing me right now. The tariff lobby, headed by the globalist and always wrong Wall Street Journal, is working hard to justify countries like Canada, Mexico, China, and too many others to name, continue the decades-long rip-off of America, both with regard to trade, crime, and poisonous drugs that are allowed to so freely flow into America. Those days are over. The USA has a major deficit.
By the way, all of these drugs, or the vast majority of these drugs, are brought in by U.S. citizens legally through legal points of entry. Obviously, they get them from cartels, get paid, get their mules, right? Border security is not going to stop that.
Sits with Canada, Mexico, and China, and almost all countries, owes $36 trillion to these deficits. It's not related. Okay. And we're not going to be the stupid country any longer.
Trade deficits. He's so retarded. Trade deficits don't matter. As long as they're getting the product they want, we get the product we want, we got a good GDP and a healthy economy. Trade deficits don't matter. Literally, if we bought everything from like 3 or 4 different countries, and they bought one thing from us, but we still had GDP, good GDP, we still had jobs, we were still doing well, right? Wage was growing, unemployment was going down, inflation was sustainable. It wouldn't matter if we had 100% trade deficit. Doesn't matter.
Make your product in the USA, and there are no tariffs. Congratulations. That's what tariffs are. Yeah. Why should the United States lose trillions of dollars in subsidizing other countries?
And how are they still convincing themselves? I saw a post the other day that was like, surprise, Trump put a 25% tariff on Mexico, so guess what? They are paying for the wall. We're still paying that tariff. How are you still convincing yourself that the foreign country pays the tariff? it can't even be added to the tariff cannot even be added to the product until it lands in the U.S. When it gets here on site at customs, they say, oh, that's computer chips from Taiwan. That has a tariff on it. You have to pay that when you pick it up.
That's not how that works. That's not what that means. And why should these other countries pay a small fraction of the cost of what USA citizens pay for drugs and pharmaceuticals as an example? This will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe and maybe not, but we will make America great again, and it will all be worth the price that must be paid. Oh, so there will be pain. Yes, maybe and maybe not.
Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe and maybe not.
I guess. But we will make America great again, and it will all be worth the price that must be paid. This is it. There it is. So the inflation is going to get higher. Prices are going to get higher. Life will get shittier. But it'll be worth it because they have to suffer more than we do. There it is. There we go.
Makes you a patriot.
We are a country that is now being run with common sense, and the results will be spectacular. I feel like Trump should be 25th Amendmented, or like, or wait, is that one of them is really bad? What do you overthrow the government? This talk is crazy. This should, like, somebody around him should instantly, like, take over or depose him as a leader. We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Why? There is no reason. We don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, should make our own cars, and have more lumber than we could ever use. Without this massive subsidy, we don't subsidize them. Canada ceases to exist as a viable...
We get an incredibly good deal on Canadian oil. Why? Because they don't have the system. So a lot of their oil, first of all, they don't have a great climate, right? It's cold there a lot of the times. And they've got oceans on both sides, but that's a long way from a lot of the places where they get oil in the center of their country. So the Keystone Pipeline XL, what was it there for? It was supposed to be, if you go read, I know Trump will tell you that was for our gas and blah, 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 that we were going to have cheap gas, but they shut it down. If you go read what Canada wanted the XL, the Keystone XL for, if you go read what they say, Canada, the people that put in half of it, that were funding most of it, the ones that wanted it the most, it was to get their crude oil from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico to sell to a global market. It wouldn't have lowered your gas prices. It wouldn't have lowered my gas prices. That wasn't what it was there for. They wanted a pipeline to put their crude oil in, get it down to the Gulf of Mexico, to the refineries and ships and shit there, and sell it to a global market. It would have been a drop in the bucket in the global market, and it would have still been the same exact things going on. Now, we get a really good deal on Canadian oil because it's hard for them to get it to their coast. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have pipelines to get rid of it all. So because we're readily there at the border, when we buy it from them there, we get a really, really, really good deal on it. Now, we have to ship it and take it to refineries and all that shit, but still, it's a good deal. It's a good deal. It's cheaper than OPEC oil. It's cheaper than Russian oil. It's cheaper than oil anywhere else that we get. It's a good deal. That's not fucking us. That's a good deal.
Country, harsh but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state. Much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada, and no tariffs. What is this? Are we actually seriously trying to get Canada to become a state? Is that what we're talking about? Or
he doesn't know.
His whole timeline reads like AI slop of like fucking maggots. It's insane. Can you explain why you think Trump is doing this? No, I can't. I cannot. At least with like Putin or like dictators, usually you have a you like understand what the point is. Like people will engage in propaganda and they'll lie, but they lie intentionally. You know why they're lying. You know what the purpose is. Like the funny, it's a waste of time for me to even say this, but when Trump is talking about here, when Trump is saying we need to make Canada a state or we should make Mexico a state, he's technically correct and that would help like our economies. But what he's talking about there is globalization, making them a state. You're talking about creating a super government that rules over larger swaths of territory, that reduces barriers to trade and immigration, increases things like financial and market integration. Those are globalist ideas. Currency integration. These are globalist ideas. When he talks about making Canada a 51st state or Mexico a 52nd, you're talking about globalist. These are globalist ideas. But nothing is like consistent in this world. Like none of this is an ideology that can be analyzed from any kind of like logical, or you have to like figure out the emotion behind every statement and just go from there. feel like I got friendly with the anti-woke coalition over the past few years, but now it feels like they're walking off a plank into extremism, and I feel frustrated about it. Being anti a bad thing doesn't make you right by default. Righteous revenge is not compassion. Like, how are you? Listen, I think that this is a very, very, very wise statement to make. In 2018. How? In 2025? Like, where have you been? Hello? Where have you been? Where are we? Hello? There is unironically a very easy way to make Trump learn from his actions here, but it's mostly cut by Alberta being a Republican wannabe province. If they actually shut off all oil exports to America for 2 to 3 weeks, it would obliterate the U.S. consumer by launching diesel and gasoline prices to a fucking ridiculous degree. Yeah. Although I worry that, in a weird way, that it could help us if gas never really was as big of a deal, and a whole bunch of oil becomes more accessible now because the price goes higher, and we like jumpstart a whole bunch of fracking and shit to go after stuff that we wouldn't have ordinarily gone after. There's like a weird way that could backfire. You're LGB because the left was not graceful in their victory. You gloat, your progress gets erased when the pendulum swings back. This time it swings so hard it might wreck the entire building. Oh, I'm sorry. We gloat? I just want you to know that if I had your address, I would be spamming it in my chat right now. Actually, the thickest, strongest nylon rope that you can find, please God, get the fuck out of here. Conservatives are the masters of telling you what they do and then telling you that this is why you can't do it. Unbelievable, bro. This is a disgrace. Are you serious?
It's not gloating. It's not gloating, right? He just plastered his picture and America is back all over whitehouse.gov. Oh, man.
Hot Boaty Sauce just resubscribed for 20 months.
It's worse than most people thought it was going to be. I think a lot of people
this might be one of the
kind of just gritted their teeth and voted for him and thought a lot of it was just bluster and him talking and stupid shit he makes up like he always does. But it's obviously not.
This might be one of the best bits of video we'll review all week, which is one of Donald Trump's most avid thing is what MAGA media is spinning it to be. So as you know, Laura Ingraham, the Fox News host, her whole job is being a pro-Trump propagandist. And even she spoke about last night responding to the news that Trump had paused, after pausing the Mexico tariffs for a month, had paused the Canadian tariffs for a month because they conceded a big concession, giving him a deal they'd already announced before, giving him an investment package related to the northern border that weeks ago they'd already published and outlined. But I guess reiterating it was enough for Trump, and that's being coined as a huge win when it's actually undermining a really important relationship and pushing Canadians toward harming our economy by not buying our products. So with that being said, even Laura Ingraham was a little bit confused as to what it is that Trump supposedly won here and brought this up in a conversation with Patrick Bet-David. While you watch, please do click the subscribe button. We have a lot to go over in this segment, including
Patrick Bet-David is a grifter too. He made his money through MLMs and retarded shit.
Isn't really whether the Trump DOJ or the Biden DOJ does anything. I think the justice system is broken. I met a lot of people that weren't J6ers, and I'm glad that the J6 thing brought out the plight of American justice, because I met a lot of good people that made mistakes and they have decades in jail for nonviolent drug charges, and in a rare compliment to the Biden administration. The 1,500 pardons that he made for the nonviolent drug offenders really made me happy, because when I was coming out, in my prison alone, there was 22 people that were going home. Now, do I agree with Biden pardoning his family members, even ones that we didn't even know existed? That's a whole other conversation.
Yes, look at what Trump's doing. You don't think it was... Biden's not fucking dumb. Hell yes. Now that what Trump's doing and people were questioning why he would pardon his family, this is why.
It's a little different that I'm going to try, which is, well, you'll see.
I'm not too impressed with the Canadian response, frankly. I mean, the fentanyls are, I don't know what that's going to do. And I guess they'll have a few helicopters flying at the border. I mean, it's not nothing, but they were going to get slapped with 25% tariffs, and now those are gone for at least 30 days. I'm not sure what's going to happen in 30 days. Maybe some other concessions, but I think President Trump saw a huge negative reaction to this, as I know you predicted, I predicted, from Wall Street, from the markets, from all the establishment types. Do you think he reacted to that?
Oh, no. I'll show you Patrick Bet-David's reaction, but when you've lost Laura Ingraham, you know,
the reason Canada doesn't refine a lot of its own oil, if you're talking about Canada, is because they have a very specific, I only learned this from Mr. Global. I'm not an expert, but I'll tell you what I know. They have a very specific crude oil that is called heavy crude or heavy oil, which requires really specialized equipment and factories that are mostly located in the U.S., because we've been out that for a long time. We have a lot of heavy crude, or whatever it's called, heavy oil, and we are really good at it. It's economically viable here because of how we can get it and transport it and get it out. There's some places where it just wouldn't be viable because the infrastructure isn't there. If you're going to spend more to refine it, the infrastructure isn't there to get it to the pumps cheap enough. We're just really good at it.
Oh, your whole stunt's not working. Again, if you're a YouTube viewer where you watch the individual segments and not the full show, then just if you haven't yet watched, I don't know where it'll be, but it's titled around a shocking Trump video, extensive breakdown we just did on the details of the game Trump's playing. Do go watch it after you watch this segment, but it's so brazen that even Laura Ingram's going, I don't know if he got much. They said something about a fentanyl czar and then promised him a plan they already had announced. It's too easy.
And you're talking about billion-dollar refineries, like maybe like 300,000 to $2 billion refineries.
I mean, it's a good play by them because they don't want their economy to be attacked and collapse by Trump leveraging the full power of the U.S. economy to go after a neighbor that we mainly just benefit economically from. It doesn't make sense. And Laura Ingraham also correctly identified, strangely enough, that the reason Trump probably put this pause on was not because he got big concessions, but he saw the reaction. He's seeing the reaction. And maybe even through his...
Also, if their major cause, I just thought of this, if their major cause is transportation, right? So we're talking about if it's because of the infrastructure, transportation, their ability to get it out to where people will buy it anyways, and they're still going to have to sell some of it to the U.S., you would rather have it one item like heavy crude that shoots down a pipeline than you would have diesel, kerosene, gasoline, jet fuel, everything that comes from a refinery, and then trying to find, if you have 10 items, trying to ship that in 10 different pipelines or 10 different trucks.
Thick skull that you can barely get things through. Even he is starting to realize maybe his whole tariffs are the most beautiful word and the best solution to everything. Pitch was flawed.
Or maybe some of his advisors said, whoa, we gotta rethink this?
I think President Trump is a guy that, in my opinion, likes to ask people, what do you think behind closed doors? But at the end of the day, he's a strategist. He's thinking 5, 10, 15 moves ahead. And
I'm not too...
A lot of these... Gosh, how do I say this in not an insulting way? Let me think. A lot of these big boy... No, that's not right. Big, strong... Gosh, this is tough. A lot of the bro, in the bro sphere, the bro podcast sphere... The bro podcast sphere. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but a lot of these folks likes to be portrayed as sort of alpha males. Maybe they want to use that term, but they want to be seen as strong, and they're not a sheep for anything, and they go their own way, and they are a man's man, right? But then their entire career becomes being walked around on a leash like a poodle by Trump. And they just pretend like everything he's doing is perfect. He says, no, we're actually going through with the tariff plan. Oh, baby, these tariffs are about to somehow, despite all economic analysis, be really good for the U.S. economy. And then he goes, never mind, we're pausing them. And they go, oh, this guy is so perfect. And he's doing a masterful negotiation where he's getting concessions that aren't real concessions, but still it's awesome because undermining our relationship with close allies is based. Was the end of that sentence, but I ran out of air. And then he's going to place him back and they're going to go, oh, yeah. So the great way that you cannot be caught in your own contradictions is by going, Trump does 11D chess. He's thinking 100 steps in the future, meaning however we...
Yeah, because it's sold the moment it goes on the pipeline. There's no more steps, right? So from like the western provinces, go straight to the United States refineries.
You know, you talk about the weave. However weirdly he weaves us into a disaster, trust and believe that it is going to be epic ultimately.
There's little maintenance, little costs. There's no driver fatigue, trucks and diesel being burnt. It just shoots down a pipeline.
You might only notice how great things got once a Democrat can come in and fix the problems that Trump leaves them, but trust me, eventually there's going to be a good outcome. Now, one of Trump's administration officials, Secretary, as disastrous as this is, of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, yes, of cricket fame, she is making sure that none of the sunlight inside of the studio gets into her eyes with the cowboy hat that she has on. And here, she also seems wild.
She looks wild, dude. That's crazy.
Confused about what it is that her boss is doing.
You know, Madam Secretary, economists all across the board are warning that ultimately tariffs lead to higher prices for consumers and that these tariffs in particular could see prices increase on food, electronics, and cars.
It's actually so much so that Canada ships out their crude oil, and then a percentage, they're our biggest foreign oil supplier for the U.S., but so much so, they ship so much of it out that at times they buy gasoline back from us.
The president himself acknowledging this morning these tariffs could cause, quote, some pain. How is this move helping President Trump fulfill his campaign promise to lower prices?
You know, you've seen the president take action already this week with Colombia, and you saw Colombia react in a very positive way that was good for everyone involved. Canada, Mexico, other countries have the opportunity to do exactly the same. So we have a strong leader. He has laid down exactly what he...
So before she says the next part, which is what I want to respond to, just so you know, we already went through today, why it's not true that Trump's getting big wins. It's so infuriating. All these things that would cause prices. All right, here's what we need to explain to her instead. So let's change location a little bit.
Oh,
so let's whiteboard. Jane had a good idea, and you can see I had one attempt at drawing a cowboy hat before we started here. It didn't go well. Hold for that. It's going to be good. So sometimes I just mock folks like Kristi. Let me explain to her instead, just in real basic terms. She seems to think that people should just not decide to raise the prices. It almost sounds like you're saying that foreign countries should just decide not to raise the prices then, because that's really what's causing it. Misunderstanding, as MAGA does, as Trump does. Of course, tariff is taxing a U.S. company that's importing foreign goods. So to make it simple, let's say that Kristi decides that awesome hat she has on inside for some reason, that's my best cowboy hat, that she wants to sell cowboy hats. So she starts a cowboy hat company. The best cowboy hats she can find are in a different country. So she's buying cowboy hats from a different country, bringing them to the United States, and then selling them to U.S. consumers.
So when you just Google it, it says Canada imports refined oil rather than refining its own because it's more economical for some refineries to use imported crude oil. This is due to the cost of transportation of crude oil from Western Canada to Eastern Canada. And because I may be wrong, but like where your oil comes from is vastly different than the gigantic demand of oil that you'd use on the eastern side, right? Isn't it like super sparsely populated, everything out west and north? And that's where your oil comes from.
She buys them from the foreign country for $1, okay? And then, let's take another stab at this. Here's a beautiful cowboy hat. To sell to the consumer, she sells it for $2. So that, when we do 2 minus 1, we get...
So if you wanted to sell it directly from there to like a global market, you'd have to get it to like your West Coast.
One.
And a port there.
And she has $1 left over. And then she structured, let's pretend it's a small business. Her entire small business, that $1, that margin for all of the different cowboy hats that she sells, that is what funds the business, pays her employees, etc. So then the reason why Trump's tariffs would increase the cost of her cowboy hats is, let's say from one of the tariff countries she's importing, as I said, the cowboy hat. Let's draw it again here. It's just getting worse and worse. Now that looks like a shoe with a strange heel or a boat. But instead of just buying it from a foreign country for $1, she buys it for $1, but a 25% tariff slapped on that, so $1.25 now is what she bought it for. A fourth of what she previously had left over for each cowboy that she bought and sold to a consumer, taken away. So her business, she can't now pay people because she was relying on that money. So the only way that she can make her business structure make sense is to sell cowboy hats now to consumers for, I'm sorry guys, I should have practiced more. I'm not good at drawing, is $2.25 so that she has the same money left over for all of her business things. Now, it's more expensive. That's the conclusion. Okay. All right, so hopefully that clears things up. And now here you have Trump saying something that is as confused as Noam was.
I'm speaking with Prime Minister Trudeau tomorrow morning, and I'm also
There are definitely people in Canada that talk about, hey, we build refineries here, blah, blah, blah. It just hasn't taken up. There's got to be a reason for that. The money, the expense, where you're going to put the refineries, how are we going to transport it?
Mexico tomorrow morning, and I don't expect anything very dramatic. We put tariffs on, they owe us a lot of money, and I'm sure they're going to pay.
They owe us a lot of money. What is he talking about? Well, he often says that we are being ripped off and that we're sending billions and billions of dollars to these foreign countries.
Here's an article. Hold on, I'll just read it right quick. Canada has always been known as a hewer of wood and drawer of water for its reliance on natural resources for economic growth, and nowhere is that more apparent than the way the country handles its extraction of oil. Despite boasting one of the highest proven oil reserves, second only to Saudi Arabia at 175 billion barrels, a high percentage of Canadian crude is shipped across the border for refining in the United States. This has led to charges that Canada is selling out its vast oil resources to the U.S. and failing to uphold the national interest in ensuring that refineries are built in Canada with the benefits accruing to Canadians. In recent years, these voices have been amplified by the Canadian government's strategy to build new pipelines and expand existing ones, namely the Keystone XL pipeline expansion that would ship more Alberta oil sands crude to the U.S. Gulf Coast refineries and Enbridge's Northern Gateway pipeline that would move Alberta oil to coastal BC for shipment to Asia. The Communications, Energy, and Paper Workers Union estimates that 18,000 Canadian jobs are lost for every 400,000 barrels of bitumen that are exported. The opposition New Democratic Party has called for a national discussion on how to develop new refining infrastructure they say would create jobs and bring in tax revenues, but has not said how they would overcome the economic challenges that have so far prevented new refineries from being built. Those challenges, it turns out, are daunting. The cost of a new refinery is pegged at $10 billion and would take years to construct. A new one hasn't been built in Canada since 1984 or in the United States since 1976, although new refineries are in the works in Michigan and Illinois. A couple years ago, British Columbia newspaper mogul David Black raised a few eyebrows when he proposed to build a $25 billion refining complex in Kitimat using feedstock moved through a pipeline built with supportive native groups, many of whom oppose the current Enbridge proposal. Another major issue is excess refining capacity. While Canada only refines about a quarter of the oil it produces, it refines more oil than it consumes. That means any newly constructed refineries would be refining oil for export, not for internal consumption. So much for refineries built by Canadians for Canadians. Looking at the North American market for refined products, it seems obvious that the majority of the refining capacity would exist in the United States, considering the imbalance in population. The U.S. has 142 refineries. Canada has 19, with most clustered around Edmonton, Sarnia, Ontario, and Montreal. The number of refineries in both countries has declined over the years due to stricter environmental standards, lower fuel demand, and the decreasing availability of sweet crude, which is cheaper to process than the heavy oil, including crude from oil sands, which is what Canada has. Michael Moore, professor of the University of Calgary's Institute for Sustainable Energy, Environment, and Economic, thinks Canada at one time may have been able to outmuscle the states in the downstream refining business, but has likely lost that opportunity for good. The time to make the decision to build up Canada's refining industry was probably 20 years ago, maybe a little before that, he told the HuffPost. When you didn't make that decision, you lost your ability to compete in that market. You couldn't catch up. Moreover, said Moore, widespread higher quality refining capacity in Canada, except in very specific instances, is not likely to be very successful. We just don't have the distribution network to support it. There you go.
With the deficit we have. That's what he says. What are you talking about? Trade deficit. And it portrays, I think we're going to have to go back to the
point. Yeah, we talked about what a good deal we get on Canadian oil compared to every other market. They're our biggest foreign oil provider.
Let's take it back to the board one more time to explain this to Trump. Okay, so let's go back to the whiteboard. Trump constantly asserts as if there's some money they owe us, that anytime we have a trade deficit with a country, we're being ripped off. That inherently trade deficit means someone's ripping us off. We're paying them money. What is a trade deficit? It's just the difference between what we buy in stuff from their country versus what they buy of stuff from our country. But to imagine this, let's put it in terms of people. Let's imagine the United States is just a guy. And actually, because the United States has more people than Canada, let's imagine it's a family of people, okay? So a family of people, and they live next to these only people in the whole universe that we're exploring.
The only ones we're arguing about are the people who attack cops, right? Most people that just enter the building got fucking probation or got 60 days. One guy got 60 days because he said the next time we fucking come back, it sure as fuck ain't going to be unarmed. That's for goddamn sure, or something like that. Threat he made, he got 60 days. The people that were left were violent offenders. And no one's arguing that somebody that just trespassed should be in jail forever.
Live next to another person who says a boat. And this person has, let's say, $1 in the bank. These people have $10.
If he would have went through and expunged the record of people and gave them a pardon of people that just got like trespassing or just the official proceeding one but didn't fucking attack and break in windows and shit, that would have been probably good with a lot of people. The fact is that he gave everybody, almost everybody there, an unconditional pardon.
$1 in the bank. Both parties here make stuff, okay? So stuff, they're making stuff, this guy's making stuff, and they can buy from each other because they're next to each other, right? Do you think that this family will be able to buy more stuff from this guy than this guy is able to buy from this family? Well, for one, there's more people here, so they'll have more needs, so probably, right? And they have more money to buy stuff. Does that make sense? If they made
27 trillion versus 2 trillion.
A bunch of things, stuff of things of stuff, then this guy, he only has $1. He can't spend all that dollar on stuff from us, but this family has $10. So they have a lot more they can use to buy from that guy. And just because, let's say they spend $5 and he spends his whole dollar, and now there's a deficit of $4, we spent 4 more on buying from him than he bought from us, doesn't mean he's ripping us off. We just have more money to spend and more people to spend it and more consumers that, now I'm getting away from the analogy. But like, let's say they wanted to sell to each other. They also have more money to buy his stuff to then sell to each other. So then bringing back to the reality, $27 trillion is the GDP of the United States, $2 trillion is the GDP of Canada. We have a lot more people and money, so it stands to reason that we'll have more wealth to buy stuff from them and then often selling to each other, buy pieces of products, a part of a supply chain from them. And just because I think
it's the same way they try to reduce the argument on deportations. You won't find anybody saying, oh, yeah, rapists and murderers that are here illegally, we got to keep them all. The problem is Trump says we're getting rid of rapists, murderers, drug dealers, whatever, but that's not what's happening, right? It's people that have been here 18 years, never committed a crime, have a fucking family here, and they just get fucking ripped away. And how much are we spending to get these non-violent immigrants that pay taxes, billions of dollars in taxes, and never receive anything back from it, and are the backbone of a lot of fucking industry, including agriculture and shit like that? Untold amounts.
The trade deficit's like $80 billion. Trump's always misstating it, but it's like $80 billion. Just because we happen to buy more of their stuff than they do of ours doesn't mean anyone's being ripped off. It mostly just means we have a larger economy, that's more money to spend, and that does sometimes include more money to spend abroad in importing products from other countries that then become part of stuff we're selling to each other. There it is. Another good explanation. So hopefully we've now taken everybody to school and are clear on that. Share your thoughts in the comments.
Man, it's getting rough out here. Let's look at something better. Here's the video game I've been talking about all day. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's $80. I'm going to buy it eventually when I have some disposable income. It looks like a really good game. So basically the first one, you started as this young kid. You were like a teenager. and your dad was a blacksmith, and you learned kind of how to blacksmith, blah, blah, blah. You get in a couple fist fights with some buddies of yours, and everybody in this town is, like, super worried that this, like, invading force that you've been hearing about, this army that's marching across the countryside and killing people and stuff. Well, suddenly that comes to your town, and they attack, and they kill your parents and shit, and you're able to flee away and meet up with, like, basically like at a holds. Not like a castle, but like a defended kind of little town. And from that, you kind of get taken on as like an apprentice, and you can become a knight, basically. And then that kind of ends mid-story where you were still trying to chase down the bad guy. So this is the second part of that. You're the same character. This is the second part of that. And you're kind of like on this path to become a knight, hunting down bad guys kind of deal. It's really cool. There's so many different outcomes, millions of decisions you can make. It's pretty interesting. So here's some gameplay from it. It actually looks really good.
I was never meant to be a warrior.
It's set in like 15th century Europe, I think.
Get up now!
He is trying to take away birthright citizenship, which means typically the U.S. and about 30 other countries. He always says we're the only one. That's not true. If you're born in the United States, you're a citizen of the United States. That's the way that's what the Constitution says. In fact, it says subject to the jurisdiction within. So if you fall under U.S. law, which they do, or we wouldn't be able to deport them. If they weren't subject to our jurisdiction, we wouldn't be able to deport them, right? If you fall under U.S. law and you're born in the U.S., then you're a citizen, right? You get citizenship. He's trying to take that away, saying it was only meant for slaves and the children of slaves.
Ow! Stop screaming, for the love of God. I was a peasant.
It's a cool game. Infantry.
My place was around the fort.
I really want to jump in and have like fucking a couple hundred hours in this thing. It looks cool.
Or the pub.
Drinks around the house!
An adventure found me. And I found...
And you're not just like forced down a path, right? You can be a guy who lockpicks, breaks into things, and hides with a bow and arrow. Or you can be a knight on horseback who fucking just destroys everybody because you put everything into your ability to fight. Or it's pretty cool.
This lot.
Watch out. Watch out. Here we go.
Henry, our hero Henry, the fellow who helps his fellow man.
His fellow man.
I only hope I live long enough to avenge the ones I love.
The giant wars and like sieges and shit are what I'm interested in, where you're like up on the castle wall and there's like an invading army and they're like putting ladders up to like climb up and you can push the fucking ladders off and shit. That's cool as hell.
No doubt you've got a cunning plan for us to get out of here, right?
You chose a different path than I wanted for you. And maybe that's how it was meant to be.
This is on just about everything. It's on PlayStation, Xbox, computer, obviously.
But once you've chosen the path of adventure, you have to fight.
There they are.
Well, now we're really fucked. You have to fight to the bitter end.
It looks like a good game. Hydroelectric is really good. I used to work in some hydroelectric power plants. Nuclear is the way I think we're going to have to go if we're ever going to replace like fucking fossil fuels.
The most adventure I was expecting was a fuck or two.
So all the live streamers are playing it right now. Penguin Zero's playing it. Let's see what he's doing. Oh, his stream's over. It's very rich in like storytelling, and it's kind of complicated to play because there's so many different ways to play it, so it explains a whole lot. I gotta buy it first. It's like $80 fucking.
Run around! Catch him in the top!
What's he running from naked?
What now? We fight him.
Hey, Hans, there's more of them up top.
Run ahead of them! We gotta get out of here.
Where now, for fuck's sake? What's your name, by the way?
Lieutenant, to go about it.
It looks like a fun game.
I think a lot of it just boils down to luxury, and I wasn't expecting anything.
Is one of Sigismund's allies.
Thanks for that, Tree.
Not hardly going to attack his people. It was dark. God knows what you saw.
I saw him, the bastard, and I'll get him.
Yes, we'll surely get him one day. I promise you. And your sword, too. But I don't think either of them are around here. But I see you haven't wasted any time and found yourself a weapon to replace.
I think it just came out today. That's why I rose. I knew it came out this month, but I didn't know exactly the day. It must have been today. That's why all the streamers are playing it right now.
It doesn't look bad, but I still think I like the one from back in the day from 2004.
Oh, that's not it. That's Fantastic Four. Exposes the industry. Deliverance 2 in a nutshell.
Welcome to medieval Europe, where the grass is a little greener, the water is a little wetter, and the chance of a woman dying during childbirth is 15%. 100% if they deliver 3 consecutive daughters. We play as Henry and are currently riding fast to deliver a message to the king. We decide to set up camp in an open area that can be surprise attacked from multiple sides. Medieval Europe is pretty...
Oh, I don't want a bunch of spoilers.
This is my dog Mutt. He's my everything. I go around the camp stealing all the food like I was me when I scanned the avocados as potatoes at the self-serve checkout. My mate asks if I want to have a practice fight. I proceed to give him a ripe spanking with my wooden sword, which is great foreplay. I mean swordplay. We celebrate by taking off all our armor, getting naked, and bathing in the large lake together. My mate then says he hears a woman's voice and wants to follow it. It's like I don't even exist. We follow the female voices. 10 minutes into my playthrough and I'm chasing a woman through the reeds. Everything makes me miss her.
It looks like a fun game. I'll get it eventually. I think you can get the regular one for like 60 or 70. Then the one with the expansion pack. Here's somebody playing it live. The one with the expansion, like the expansion pack built in, is 80. Something like that. It's like potions or something.
We should learn.
Sometimes it's fun to play a fucking video game for a few hours and forget that Donald Trump exists.
So hopefully that fucking tavern owner bitch or whatever is you know, a real NPC in the game and I can kill her. You know, I'm hoping.
Okay, that was kind of unnecessarily violent.
Oh my dude, all these people talking shit. I will have my revenge.
Please, I don't know what's up with you, but I know you were there. I need your help.
It is a good escape. And I like games that's got a good story, that you're not just playing it for no reason or supposed to imagine your own story, but it actually has a storyline you can progress through and complete a goal. I really like the horror games that have a good story. We've played a couple of them, like The Quarry. That was a good game. It took a weird twist. I thought it was just like a murderer, but it had like these weird fucking beast-looking things. That was fun. I don't know. We'll get back to it eventually. Play some games. Everybody's always like, why don't you just play it on stream? Then I go to play it on stream and there's like 1.5 people watching. Like, and then I'll go back to like streaming politics or news or something. And then everybody will come back and say, I thought you was going to play a game. Why aren't you playing the game? Because everybody fucking left.
When launch? SpaceX is racing towards Flight 8. The FAA releases new information about the Starship explosion and its physical impact. Is SpaceX in trouble? Ship 34 is ready for its test.
They would have been, but he convinced the FAA, the head of the FAA, to fucking resign, so who knows?
An asteroid might be on its way to impact Earth. Should we be worried? Granted one goes from February 24th to August 24th, so exactly half a year. The thing is though that SpaceX's last one was for precisely 6 months before that as well. See the pattern? This is just an extension. SpaceX has to file for it every half year. The FCC filings are not to be confused with a launch license. Unfortunately, these have nothing to do with that, and they also don't show SpaceX's intent to launch a Starship at the beginning of the following 6 months license. But there is one small detail in it that at least gives us an NET, or not earlier than date. The filing states that new frequencies are specifically needed for communication during Flight 8, so we will not see a launch of Flight 8 before February 24th. The most significant factor influencing that estimate is the ongoing investigation of Flight 7. SpaceX's ship, the first Block 2 ship to launch, didn't do particularly well, and its flight ended in an explosion. This investigation is led by SpaceX. They are going through all the data and they're identifying causes and corrective measures. Once a report is written, it's handed over to the FAA. It's on the FAA to decide and then greenlight the next flight. The other very important factor to estimate when Flight 8 might happen is SpaceX's readiness. To launch a rocket, you don't just need a license.
Well, get ready to tune out for a couple weeks because I'm going to buy it soon.
You also need a rocket. In this case, Ship 34 and Booster 15. Let's talk about Ship 34. Over the weekend, engine installation kicked into high gear inside Mega Bay 2. On January 29th, a vacuum reactor was spotted being moved from Star Factory to Mega Bay 2 and installed on Ship 34. Let's refresh our knowledge. There are two versions of Raptor engines. Vacuum Raptors are the larger versions of the engines, optimized for space operations. The smaller sea-level Raptor engines are used for launch and landing. Large vacuum nozzles exist because space has less pressure. A nozzle gradually expands the gases coming out of an engine until they reach ambient pressure, which is much lower in space. Thus, the nozzles need to be wider. Using two different types of nozzles within and outside the atmosphere significantly increases engine efficiency. Version 2 starships use 3 of these engines, while future versions will double that to 6 for better in-orbit performance. Now, we received a road closure for Highway 4 scheduled for the early morning hours of February 4th. When you watch this, it already happened. Engines installed and road closures in place. This is important because if SpaceX planned on rolling the ship, there would only be a delay between the production site and Massey's. However, if they planned on moving the booster, it would be from the production site to the launch site. Ship 34 only just received its engines, so it seems highly unlikely that they would be ready to test that ship so quickly, especially considering that they may still need to make some modifications to the ship following lessons learned from Flight 7. In other words, it could be possible that this will be for the booster rolling to the launch pad. If that is the case, the pad should be close to operational again in no time. But will this be fast enough to launch in the last week of February? While it is possible, looking back at previous Starship launches does paint a slightly different picture. As of now, the fastest turnaround time between the static fire of a booster and a launch was with Booster 13 on Flight 6, which launched 26 days after its static fire, and looking at almost every launch, it's a relatively similar story, with the average being just a little over a month. If we follow that logic, we'd be more likely looking at a launch in early March. However, that ignores one critical fact. This is SpaceX we're talking about. The goal of Starship is to launch multiple times a day. SpaceX has been working hard to reduce that turnaround time as quickly as possible. The last week of February is still a possibility. However, it seems more likely that it will be closer to the end of the month or early next month. Before we go on about a possible launch date, our channel metrics show over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help improve the channel and double check that you've hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with our updates. Like this video if you appreciate the content and become a wise supporter for extra content. Secure your access to up to 7 picture galleries per week, satellite, aerial, and ground photos, and 3D animations. Chat with me and gain more insights on the topic you love. You feel like doing something crazy? Check out redlineheli.com/Felix for a once-in-a-lifetime experience and $25 off flying in a helicopter above Starbase. The Redline helicopter team is waiting for you. They'll show you the same views our photographers get on their Starbase flights. Now back to launch date speculations.
It's going to be pretty hard. A game. The first one was extremely hard. That was a lot of people's complaints. They didn't play long enough to get in, and the controls were kind of finicky and died a lot.
They want to be ready,
but I like it. A game like that.
To have
eventually.
That has likely been one of the main factors holding them back. Constant work is still being done on Pad A. In fact, we can get a pretty good idea of just how beat up this pad was after Flight 7 based on the fact that the current record between a previous launch and a static fire was after Flight 5, when SpaceX was able to static fire a booster just 11 days later. And since that launch included a catch too, it's a pretty good indication of SpaceX's trouble. This launch pad has been a massive headache for SpaceX since the very first flight of Starship, when it decided to turn from a launch pad into a crater. Even now, after multiple launches and SpaceX attempting to upgrade the pad numerous times, it still feels like a coin flip of how long the repairs are actually going to take. This is why we've been watching Pad B's development so carefully. It's supposed to take all the lessons learned from Pad A's failures and fix them by completely overhauling the design. Starting with what is likely the most visually different aspect of Pad B, the flame trench. This is designed to redirect the forces of a launch away from the sensitive equipment on both the launch pad and the rocket. This is crucial, as on the current pad, the forces produced at liftoff are reflected off the ground and sent straight back at the launch pad and the rocket. And while the water-cooled steel plate mitigates some of this, it's not nearly enough for a rocket of this size. This new flame diverter is an essential piece of hardware, and it's getting pretty close to...
By the way, this is the water that he was releasing and got fined for when he says it's completely clean water, and they say we didn't have the right permit to pour out clean water. It's part of the flame trench. Like, it's not just clean water, obviously.
Thanks to our flyover with Redline helicopter tours, we can see the massive amounts of work SpaceX has been performing here. With the entire flame trench now almost entirely excavated, they can finally begin the fun part, pouring concrete. In fact, during our flyover, you can see the line of concrete trucks just waiting to finish this trench and the hose that delivers it to where it's needed. While excavation work is almost done, some last bits of work remain. SpaceX is finishing off this half of the launch pad, and the other half still needs more than just to prevent them from swinging in the wind until the hydraulic actuators are installed. Workers sticks to move up and down the tower, making it one of the most vital parts of the system. And those aren't the only parts so quickly that the might be changing. Based on some foundation work, SpaceX is still going to expand the tank farm. We've spotted numerous tanks around Starbase, so it likely won't be long before that happens. The same can be said for the water deluge tanks, as SpaceX has also begun installing the other pedestals. So let's move on from the prep work for this hardware and actually look at the hardware itself at Sanchez. Before we talk about that, Surfshark has Safety isn't just important in spaceflight. Set a new standard for your family's life. Go to Surfshark.com, says where a closer to completion.
I want to see if they talked any more about the FAA shit.
Aims to make it indestructible. Wedge, which splits the flames down the middle and experiences the greatest force during liftoff, has been moved from its storage location to where SpaceX has been prepping most of its hardware. Thus, we will likely aim during its flight before. This may take some time, as Ship 34 took around a month and a half. Example, it's begun stacking already. Wait, but we haven't seen it leave the star factor. All the two separate payload sections. They have officially confirmed that it may be slowed by it. Flight 7 wasn't just any typical failure. Ship 33 broke apart over the Turks and Caicos Islands, and while most of the debris fell into the water, some landed on the island. Even reports about debris hitting a car came out. Of course, this...
So the guy that said they need to be investigated for this, they can't just be blowing up over fucking populated areas, was coerced into resigning on Inauguration Day.
Prompted the FAA to investigate, and now they have officially confirmed that it was, in fact, debris from a starship. I reported about this on a recent episode. The most liked comment under it was that
they denied that it was their debris, that it was something else had to happen.
It was totally fake news and clickbait. Keep in mind that our interest here at Y is strictly in bringing you the updates, not fabricating them. If it is in the episode, we found evidence, otherwise it isn't. While they also confirmed that no injuries have been found yet, this still poses a problem, as it could lead to further investigations or possibly even SpaceX changing its flight path or its safety procedures. This may cause further delays to Flight 8, however, the FAA has yet to comment. That is all the information there is on Flight 8. The most likely launch window as of now should be the end of February to the beginning of March. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Do you remember when Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams flew to space? Boeing's Starliner test flight was originally planned as a 10-day...
Alright, so one more thing that's trending before I hop off here is MAGA is trending over on TikTok, but not for reasons you might think. They have stolen the MAGA catchphrase, and it now stands for Mexicans ain't going anywhere. It's not that I have a background in it, I guess. I just, I'm interested in a lot of... I only talk about stuff that usually I'm interested in, and I typically research stuff that I'm interested in or watch a shit ton of content on it or something. I have background in... I was in the military. I worked out on the road for a long time. I worked on jet engine mechanic, a turbine mechanic, cell phone towers, construction, generally on the road, shutdowns, welding, mechanical stuff, precision measurements. But I'm interested in a lot of stuff, so I just research a lot of stuff.
MAGA now means Mexicans ain't going anywhere.
Mexicans ain't going anywhere.
I did not hear he died. I know who that is.
Mexicans ain't going anywhere. That's a MAGA I can get behind.
And Mexicans ain't going nowhere, bitch.
Renamed MAGA to Mexicans ain't going anywhere. I love it.
Where Mexicans ain't going anywhere.
MAGA now. Y'all turned MAGA into Mexicans ain't going anywhere. He would literally shit bricks because that's his fucking bread and butter. His whole core base lives by
overdose. Damn.
Y'all should turn that. Y'all turned MAGA.
Got that Fent folds. I kind of like that merch goes fucking hard, dude. Especially those chains. That's not bad. If it's something that I'm not interested in, I don't know anything about it. So I'm really dumb on those topics. So we look up a bunch of shit. But if it's something I'm interested in, like, I don't know, jet engines or condensation or anything with QAnon, then we've already pretty extensively researched it. Oh no, is that a police car? Oh, I saw this and thought it was fucking like a cage in the back of a car. I thought they were tagging police cars. There you go. That's your new MAGA for the night. I'm out of here, guys. Tomorrow is a weird day. I've got a thing on the phone that's going to take a couple hours, And I don't know what's happening tomorrow. If I'm here tomorrow, I'll see you guys. If I'm not, at least I gave you a heads up. Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. If you want to support the show, go to coldbeer.fund. If you don't, fuck it. I don't even want to support the show. So thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one. Maybe tomorrow, maybe not. See you guys. Have a good night.
But I can tell you this.
This cup.
If this douchebag happens to see this particular show, you don't have the forking balls to call out the people on this planet by name.
It's not even my cup. Mariah's already taken it.
Telling the rest of the world you don't have the forking balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set.
I don't watch TV. I don't listen to music. Usually I spend it, if I have time, I like to read a lot or listen to audiobooks, but usually I spend it on YouTube videos on topics I'm just interested in.
You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well, listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6th sense for the stupid shit. Where my true believer?
And I basically have no life, so that helps.
All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip, worshiping Trump's cock and begging for a throat deposit, swinging fucking meat hammers like four in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, eating his chest like he's King Kong, starving for attention. I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers, cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom.
Have a good night, guys.
Found some of his meat